Hello, and welcome to the Weekly Scroll podcast brought to you by the Adventure Archive. My name is Ryan.
I'm Hunter.
Today we have a very special guest with us, Max Moon. How are you doing, Max?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
It's wonderful. So Fairyland is on Kickstarter right now for, I think it's like 60 hours left about. Is that it?
57
hours.
Yes, that is true. Very excited about how that's going.
I know you were on an Instagram Live interview with Hambone yesterday. You talked about Fairyland a lot, but for those that didn't watch that, why don't you tell us a little bit about Fairyland?
Sure. Yeah, so Fairyland is a passion project between me and old friend Kyle Reimergarten, who was writing some incredible stuff. I'm like, oh my God, we have to make this into a zine. And it just kept getting better and better. And it is a system neutral psychedelic micro setting, just enough content in those 44 pages that you can go to visit Fairyland, have your whole world changed, have your body changed, and come back terrified or never come back at all. One of the things that we're doing with Fairyland is really trying to kind of disrupt some of the more pop ideas about how we think about fairies and how things are often portrayed, and Fairyland's often portrayed, and kind of pull back to some of the really old fairy lore. And I've talked about this a bit where like a fairy, let's get away from that whole like Disney looking thing or whatever and come back to this idea where like devils, imps, goblins, pixies, nymphs, all those things are all fairies, including like I've been saying like the weird uncle who lives in the woods also might be a fairy because people just think he's strange and call him a fairy. So it kind of encompasses that whole like wild colonialized like lore.
That's really interesting. You have like a really it seems like and you correct me if I'm wrong, you have like an affinity for this like classic fae idea. Because 12 years, which we're going to go over after this, has a lot of these really great old school fae elements where it's like, you know, the fae is not like a very super positive thing. Like you can get lost in it maybe forever. You can have negative effects. Is there like, is just the lore of like what classic fae is what draws you to it, or do you have something like specific that draws you to it?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been obsessed with this for a long time, but I think my like interests have got like deepened in recent years, and this all kind of comes back to my own sort of like practice and way of being in the world too. But like this, I grew up in like rural South with like family that lived in like woods with like no road kind of thing, and that's where like I would go to visit them. I had a little more like population where I lived, but then spending time out there in that kind of like very much like hillbilly country, and just wandering the woods and finding strange things and like all the stories that family would tell. And I think a lot of those were handed down from like immigrant family and stuff. So like they would give me like a heads up, like, oh, I found this like weird ghost town a few miles into the woods. It's like a dilapidated village. And they're like, oh yeah, if you go out there, watch out for Apple Tree Man and stuff like that. Or like my grandma decorated like a fir tree with all natural decorations and then like took me on a walk and let me find it and was like, oh, I guess the fairies, they're like the little people and the animals must have decorated this for you. And so that sort of like
cool.
Mad, like, you know, remystification of things is a big part of my life. And I don't need truth and like real like that sort of distinction. I feel like is really useful to like oppress people and stuff. You can just be in the world. So that's kind of where I get really into fairy stuff, and I see it as kind of like a before we needed religion and truth and reality, we got to just be playful and afraid and in awe.
Very druid of you.
I love that. I like that. It's kind of like taking the whimsy out of what a lot of people see as like fairies, because whenever I think of fae and I would run adventures in fae, I think it's much more towards what you think, where you have to speak very carefully around the fae because of you might find yourself caught in a deal that keeps you there forever. And it's that kind of creepy, dark, this is funny for a second until it gets really weird and really creepy.
Hey, I really like your dancing. Why don't you continue to do that just forever?
Forever until your feet literally like wear off, and then you grind your bones to dust and die while you're still dancing to these magical instruments. In Abyss of Hallucinations, another just absolutely stunning zine that you did.
A beautiful book, by the way. Like, let's just take a moment. Yeah. And that is a fantastic looking zine. Like,
it is stunning. And it came with, I backed it to get the Book of Lies from Aleister Crowley as well. So anyone that's actually going to basically reprint in their own version, like Aleister Crowley's Book of Lies, you can kind of get a sense of what they're into a little bit. But even in Abyss of Hallucinations, it's got that kind of weird, I know it's a little bit more of an Abyss turn, but you still have Pan and then Baphomet and things like that. But that's still that kind of like weird, not whimsy. Maybe this one's a little bit more than a hint of dark, but there is that kind of theme that carries over between what sounds like Fairyland and 12 Years and Abyss of Hallucination. So clearly that's something that inspires you a lot through a lot of the things you've created.
Yeah, just the pairing of the dark and the joyful as a whole is where I get most excited, I think. And that's like in the music I've made and the art I've made and the zine stuff so like when Kyle was writing Fairyland and he showed me that, I was like, oh yes, this is like spot on with the things that I'm most excited about. So like, yeah, absolutely. That will probably be a theme in everything I do. I probably can't help it.
Well, you keep doing it and I'll keep buying it. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in on this just because I'm so excited about it. I know you talked about this yesterday, that you are getting back together to create now an album, a Dungeon Synth album for Fairyland.
Cool. Yeah. So Kyle and I briefly performed as with circuit bent instruments and synthesizers, and we sewed like neon plush tentacled masks, and we performed as the Cthulhugans. And so it's time to reunite the Cthulhugans for the Fairyland soundtrack. So we will be getting that figured out and start making some music together. And it'll be strange, and it's going to be a really fun project to kind of think of like, we're going to have to pull ourselves in a bit on the strangeness to like find a little good direction. Because if we are left to our own devices, it can just get way too weird, which is wonderful. We have a couple of video games that we made about our relationship too. That are about if we spend too much time together, we die. So
that's amazing. That's
awesome.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to that album. I hope that you post like the cover art as you guys in the costumes, because I think that's what the world needs right now.
Yeah.
More Cthulhugans.
Speaking of the zines that you've done too, your Instagram is full of you experimenting with your zine creation, with the foiling, with everything. And even as far as the 12-year zine, one of the things, I've had the zine for a long time and read it a bunch, and literally just noticed yesterday that it's even got green staples in it to keep with the theme. So what got you actually starting to not only make your own games and stuff like that, but to make zines, and not just, make gorgeous zines. 12 years is fantastic with the foiling.
It's very much what we like on this channel, which is art. It is a work of art.
Thank you. So there's a few things like that kind of all came into play at once, right? Like, so one, the pandemic happened and work got slow for a bit there. And so I just like had a little more time. And I've been doing, I'm a printmaker. I love making things. I'm a former art teacher. I work in art education. I just like love making stuff, and I love trying out new processes and things, and zines are like a new opportunity for that, right? But also with the printmaking, one of the things that I also happened, I like had that a little bit, like work got slow for a little bit, so I just had a little more time, wasn't traveling around the state and stuff, and so like, okay, that's nice. But also a little while back, I picked up a copy of Fiddler's Green, which is like a cult zine, wonderful articles. But it was the first time I picked up a zine. I was like, it is just like a gorgeously constructed thing. And then after that, there was like friend got me into Morkborg, and with Morkborg, there was like the Cult Heretic or Cult Feretory, whichever one came first. And I'm looking at that, and I'd been working on, I think by the time I got that, I'd been working on 12 years, but I remember that was the one that I saw, and it was just like, that just those black staples on that yellow paper, it's a huge difference. It's just a tiny accent, but it's huge. Yep.
Yeah, go ahead and point to it.
And then like, I mean, that's the kind of zine I would like aspire to be able to create with like in terms of like, they've got like the gorgeous like foiling on random pages and stuff. And it's like, I can't make that kind of thing by hand, but I'm like loving with working by like doing everything myself. I also get a lot of opportunity to just experiment and try things that maybe aren't replicable. Maybe they are. Like for my contributor copies, I did like a heat embossing of the Lich King in the center there. Yeah. So that's actually
that's like really, really cool.
So there's like just a few of those for the people who worked with me on that. But
that's gorgeous. So I know there was a gold version too that I missed out on as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have a copy of that anymore. I passed that along, but I'll probably have to make another one for myself. But that was a quick I'm just like, you know what? Today I just want to make however many people buy today. So I just had to like a 1-day thing.
Well, hey, if you ever do another one, if you ever have another 1-day thing, you have all my stuff to let me know now. So
yes, I will. Yeah.
We had a question in the chat actually, if there's going to be another 12 years print, because Skull, who's on our channel on Thursdays, was asking.
Yeah. Yep, there will be. I have a lot of things in the works right now, but I actually have a new screen. I wore out my old screen, so I have a new screen for it, and I'm just debating like how much I want to go back in. There's some things in the language I want to clean up, a couple of inconsistencies that I want to clean up. So I'm debating if I like hold off for like a second edition, or if I go ahead, print some more copies now. I'm not changing anything big in there. It's just like a little cleaning up. So I don't know if I need to wait for that. So I'm still kind of figuring that out. And then, I'm probably going to have a little boxed edition too coming. So,
well, we're going to buy it. So,
I mean, I tried to, I was so upset that I missed the Abyss of Hallucinations. It came with like the seal on it, like the cursed seal. And you had to like, I think it was, did you have to burn a copy to like unseal the curse from it, or?
Yeah, I made one available for one person to burn a copy but everyone else hopefully is rolling terribly from now on. So I was really happy to curse people's dice. And I put a lot of work into like, that's gonna work. Just
there you go. So am I allowed to, speaking of your one-offs, am I allowed to say anything about that? Yeah. So me and Max have been talking for a while, and he dropped the time that it was going to happen, and there was this one edition. If everyone's seen it on the zine, it is the odious one, the unsealy version, like black foil on black. This guy got it. I sat there for 2 minutes refreshing the page until it popped up, and just as fast as I could click, checked out and got that. So I can't tell you how excited I am to have the one version of that like in the world. Can't wait to get it. Very, very excited for that. So
I love doing the one-off just because I can make some stuff. I can play with it, do some things that I just can't do, even if I'm doing two. So there'll be some fun surprises in there for you.
Oh, I can't wait. I heard you talking a little bit about it yesterday on the Instagram live, so I'm very excited for it. And also boxes now too. Yep.
I finally got it figured out how I can like print on boxes well, and that is working, and that is good. So that's coming. The insert map. Oh man, Andy Weber has done illustrations for like all the zines so far. And he's been working on a map for Fairyland, and it's just looking gorgeous. It's all pencils right now, but when it gets to inking, we'll probably put that in that'll be showing up in updates along the way. But yeah.
Did he do the map for Abyss of Hallucinations as well?
He did. Yep.
It's a great map. It's a fantastic map.
Oh, that's so good.
He's
now
wonderful.
when you were talking, is Andy your friend that is kind of like, you've known him forever, you've done stuff with him forever, but sometimes there's like, there's times where you don't see each other, and then when you get back together, it's like...
That is Kyle, but also
Kyle,
Andy is another one of those people, but we live in the same area, and we've been in bands together, and we've done projects together here and there. So like, it's that similar vibe of like, he's another person who I can collaborate with really like quick and easy and trusted. Well, like he knows how like fucked up things are right here and how beautiful that is. So we're both left-handed, both born on the same day. I like to think at the same time. We plan on dying at the same time. And so
there you go.
Yep.
It was interesting when you were talking about that in the interview. It actually reminded me of Hunter, because I think we became like best friends within like 5 minutes of meeting each other.
Probably something like that.
And then he left me and moved far away. And there were times where like for months we wouldn't really talk, and then we'd like talk intensely for like a month and then not again. And then with the podcast, it was kind of like that coming together again now. And now we've been able to talk every day. So it really reminded me of...
day, so.
Yeah. I talk a lot and he responds every now and then, but
a busy guy.
Back to,
I got stuff going. I'm out here in the world making moves. I don't do anything.
One other thing about Fairyland though, so some stretch goals got unlocked, and you're gonna do either is it additional content for, or is it adapted to fit, I believe it's Troika, Merkborg, DCC, and Old School Essentials?
Yeah, so it will be that content is not in the zine. That's going to be separate as inserts, and it's going to be a new class based on the idea of a fairy. It's going to be a new class for each of those 4 games. Each one's going to be different. So like, we're not doing like writing up a class and then converting it among them. And each one of them is going to also have some opportunity to use some of the content in the zine. Like if you're playing a fairy, instead of being like, here's what a fairy looks like, we've got a table that you can roll on for like randomly generating what a fairy looks like. So when you use that playable class, you can refer back to that table. So there's some other tables in the zine that might get pulled out for different things for each of the classes. So it'll still refer you back to the zine content, but it will be like its own standalone class that you can use.
That's awesome. And then why? So, I mean, all 4 of those games are great. We've talked about Troika, Merkborg. I have this is all Old School Essentials right here, and DCC is like right there, just out of screen. But why those 4 games instead of something like the world's most marketed role-playing game or something like that?
Sure. This is gonna, okay, so those games are fun.
Yeah, cool.
I'll say more though, for real though. Those are our 4 favorite games. But I will say, like, Rules Light is what we're like want to be writing for. Those are the games we want to be playing. That's the kind of stuff like, yeah, you could absolutely use Fairyland in your 5e campaign. It's going to take you a lot more work. We're not like writing stuff up to support 5e.
Yeah, and also you could just not play 5e.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was just talking to my brother recently about 5e and talking about like, he was describing how he plays 5e and how it like works pretty well, but sometimes it gets a little tiring because he's like, I always avoid like throwing monsters at characters that are spellcasters because it's too much work. I'm like, it's because what you're trying to do is you're trying to make a rules light game starting with a rules heavy game that doesn't actually like work that well. I mean, I'm not gonna like, I'll leave the like trash in 5e for you all to do like whenever.
Oh no, we do it every episode.
We do it every episode.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I say that as this entire shelf is 5e right here, but this is just a reminder of how much money I've blown on my first RPG. So
I'm a firm believer that like all games are good games if you're enjoying them. I do think from like a design perspective is like clunky is a kind word, and controlling is also probably a kind word, but
it's somewhere in that realm though. I very much agree with that.
Yeah. I'm gonna try it though. I haven't played it. I just like read through the rules and look at it. So I'm saying all this with the caveat. I haven't actually played it, so take that with a grain of salt.
I dunk on 5e all the time, but I have a group of guys from my work that all like one of them is the DM, and he. So I play 5e. I haven't been playing with them recently, but like almost every weekend with them. Okay. And it's just because I really like them, but I'm constantly like pushing little games to the DM. I'm like, hey man, just so you know, like all the things that you're constantly complaining about. This doesn't have any of those things, man. Yeah.
I mean, some of my frustration, like I played a ton of 3.0 and 3.5, like an insane amount. I refused to play anything else for over a decade. And I think like all of the like OSR stuff, the rules light stuff, all the indie stuff just like blew my mind as I like started reading through more of that. And even when I wrote 12 years, I'm like, I really want to try to like pick apart some of the things I don't like, but like go kind of to the extreme. So like a combat, like I don't want rounds and like going through and like everyone getting turns. I just want like, how simple can we go in the abstraction and still keep it interesting and fun? So that was a lot of the goals for me. And also I was tired of like never running away from things, always just like plowing through with sword or fist.
It's a little unrealistic, you know?
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, and those games specifically are kind of, I don't know how to, I would say they're 4 of like the top 10-ish kind of like non-big trad games out there for that most people generally do a lot of content in that isn't, you know, basically 5e or Pathfinder. Especially Troika is so easy to do backgrounds for. Merkborg is just, I mean, it kind of blew up. You know, we did have Johan on the shore on the show, and a lot of that was just
Johan Nor.
Friend of the show, Johan Nor. And I think a big part of it blowing up, besides the fact that it was beautiful, is the community that it created around it too, and kind of like even Feritory and Heretic, like you said, with these beautiful zines, with this foiling and things like that, which is, I mean, not realistically, just I mean, come on, you can't really get a whole lot better than a Max Moon zine as far as it looking absolutely stunning and then having amazing content in it. And then DCC and OSE, I have not played a ton. I've read through a good chunk of it. The DCC book, for being rules light, is 600 pages long. So, you know, it's a bit of a trek to get through.
That one is rules lighter. It's lighter than 3, like, which is, it's like core, right? Like it. So I love it. And DCC has a couple things that will keep me coming back forever. The magic, like the spells, the spell duels. I just think it's genius. The dice chain, I'm like, that is a beautiful thing. So they nailed some stuff. It like and like Troika. Okay, I was listening to your podcast before I played Troika to kind of help me like learn. And I was listening as you were talking about initiative. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure how I'm gonna feel about that. But after our first time we played, I fell in love with the initiative system, kind of because it produces some stupid results. And like games often are too ordered. And so I was like, I really actually enjoy as a player. I don't know how I'd feel about it as a GM. As a player, I kind of enjoy that I just like got like 2 attack, whatever. I'm going off on Troika. I like fell in love with Troika deeply. And the same thing with like Morkborg. OSE for me is more just, it's nostalgia. It's that like, I remember what it was like as a kid playing like first edition. And so like, that is where that holds that. It'll always be like when I play OSE, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this. It's just a dungeon crawl. I'm trying to kill stuff and steal money out of the grave.
There you go. Yeah, no, I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am to have not only more content from you as far as Fairyland, but also to have more content for those 4 games, which are, again, I mean, outside of the major trad games, some of the big ones. So it's really exciting to see that come about, as well as the album and the one of a kind zine I'm getting and the box and everything like that. So excited for the Kickstarter project. That's me. I got that
you're getting.
Yeah, that I'm getting. Is there anything else you want to say about Fairyland? I know there's only a day or 2 left in it. Is there anything besides potentially 12 Years 2E kind of on the horizon too after Fairyland, or where are you at?
Yeah. So okay, on the horizon, Abyss of Hallucinations Volume 2 is coming this year. Probably late spring, early summer. I'm very excited to get working on that one. It's also nice to kind of like, when I made Volume 1, I was like, I don't actually know where this is gonna, like how this is gonna land. Like people could just be like, what the hell's wrong with you mixing these things? Now I'm like, oh yeah, it's going to be cool. I can like put a lot of work in ahead of time too. So Abyss of Hallucinations, Volume 2. I've got a couple of other things that are like still percolating. But yeah, and with Fairyland, just like, I don't know, back it. It's going to be cool. It's going to be super fun. There's that actual play with +1 XP to watch if you want to see how it rolls. There's also a little review there too. And yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I can't tell you how excited I am for it and looking forward to everything that you do. I know when we first started this podcast, there was like 3 or 4 names that I was like, if we ever get a chance to talk to a couple of people,
you were
it would be
pretty
great.
high on that list.
Yeah. There was I think we've got like 2 out of the 3 or 4 already somehow.
That's awesome.
So it's very excited to have you on.
Listen, Adam Bass, if you're listening, you're next. You know.
Nice.
But yeah, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Again, now thanks, Max Moon, friend of the show forever.
Friend of the show, Max Moon.
Yeah. So maybe next time you have another project coming out, we can bring you back on and we'll chat it up a little bit and talk about that. How do you feel?
That sounds great. All right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to cut to BRB real quick, just to fix our windows and stuff in here. Say goodbye to Max, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes, everybody. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hello, and welcome back to the Weekly Scroll. That was Max Moon, wonderful, wonderful creator. They've made a ton. Yeah, seriously. And I don't know if you heard, I did get the one-of-a-kind zine for Fairyland.
We all fucking heard.
Very excited for that. Very excited for that. And very excited to talk about 12 Years. It is a great game. There's a lot of stuff. It's short. It's simple.
It's so clever. We're
so clever.
We're getting ahead of the. We're putting the carriage to the horse right now. You know.
So prior to that, we're gonna get into Kickstart the Podcast.
Woo!
Boom. We're gonna start with. Oh, maybe if I was on the right window.
Wait, we're not the Planar Compass issue 3 yet.
Not yet. We are going to look at Lucid Sea of Dreams. We're going to continue with our Kickstart the Podcast talking about some Zemo projects. What we should have done when we picked out a bunch of projects and tweeted out, hey, let us know about your projects so we can talk about them, is look at the end dates. We did not. So the next 4 projects we're going to go over today all in within the next 3 to 5 days. And Fairyland does as well. So I'm actually going to try to get the podcast episode out a little bit early this week. So maybe if people listen to it, they have time to go look at it. This that we're going to talk about first is Lucid Sea of Dreams, a rules light hackable tabletop RPG about lucid dreaming, inspired by dreams, nightmares, Jewish folklore, and much more. This is a great project by Raphael Falk. It is, I think, Game Garden is the. I apologize if I said that wrong, but I do believe this is the first product from Game Garden. I'm looking at what I'm looking at.
We're doing real good today.
Oh, I'm doing great. I have notes even. I even have notes. Games Garden. Yeah. So you can find this here on Kickstarter. It is funded. It is fully backed, which is fantastic, but there's never such thing as too much funding. 99 backers, 5 days to go. And what Lucid Dreams is an indie RPG for 1 to 6 players. It's a game about dreams, ideas, and players given freedom to unleash their imaginations and creativity. It is what I like about this is it is a standalone game. You can actually, since it's so hackable and it's kind of system neutral, you can actually kind of tuck this into any game that you're actively running. So if you just want to have basically like a dream sequence or an adventure where you go into this kind of this space, you can use this to kind of drop into any setting, any adventure, to have kind of a side quest or something like that. So it's really, really interesting idea, and I like the idea of having a product that is adaptable into any setting as kind of, as I said, like a side quest. So this is really, really cool for that. And even just the art, like instantly takes you to this weird kind of lucid dream space.
Yeah,
it's
very,
literally
almost like Alice in Wonderland-esque, like, but dark.
It is.
I mean, I guess the books Alice in Wonderland are dark, so
they are. I mean, the actual ones are even darker than the show, or the cartoon. But the main art here on the page is a tea party with an octopus, an owl in a suit, and a tree, like a treant, hanging out, having a tea party. So it is a really
party. Duh.
I mean, that's all the tea parties I've been to.
Yeah.
So it is tools for creating interesting and unique characters, tables for generating encounters, compelling dreamscapes, 8 unique locations within the Sea of Dreams to explore with plot hooks, and a bevy of over a dozen interesting beings inspired by dreams, nightmares, Jewish folklore, and more. It's just cool. Like, I'm actually surprised that it's not, backed a little bit more with how interesting the art is, how cool the idea of it is, and how much content you actually get for, I believe it's around 45 pages.
Like
easy, super easy.
You can drop this into almost anything, man. Like, this
literally.
is like, because I'm really looking for more stuff to drop into the odd. And like, this is another one that you can just, man, a weird dream sequence fits in very well with Into the Odd.
Yeah. And then if you look at farther down, there is this, it's a page mock-up of the reptile room run by the affable Lyle, a man with a crocodile head. The reptile room is a classy lounge in the Pearl. So that kind of, again, takes you to what this kind of lucid dream space is. It's a man with a crocodile head serving drinks to what looks like a cloud person.
Perfect.
So it looks
amazing.
Great. It's
so
good. It's fantastic.
Fantastic.
Yeah. The shipping rates are, I mean, to back it at a print level is it's only $15. It's PDF at $10, and shipping in the US, because obviously, that's all we care about because we're Americans, is only $3. So you can get the entire thing for $18, PDF, print, in your possession. So it's a steal as far as I'm concerned, and they're very close to, I believe it's the first stretch goal. They are right now at 2127, and at 2300 they get additional full page illustrations, and 2650 they'd get even more art. So less than $500 away from hitting 2 art stretch goals, and in the next 5 days. So yeah, highly recommend you grab this, even at the PDF level. Again, if you play any setting where you could potentially have this kind of Sea of Dreams, or have these plot hooks in kind of a dreamscape, this sounds absolutely perfect. And I love that it's not, again, it's kind of what we talked about with Max. It's not a lot of whimsy. It talked about like nightmare scenarios and plot hooks and creatures too. So sounds really, really cool. Again, this is Lucid Sea of Dreams on Kickstarter. The rules like hackable tabletop for lucid dreaming. So definitely check that out. 5 days, back that. Next, we are going to talk about Skin Job. Skin Job is a third-party Morkborg adventure. Morkborg. I'm not Swedish. I wish I could say it better. Skin Job is a putrid, deep pit of filth set in the horrific desolation of the world of Morkborg. And if you see this art here on the initial page, the art at the top, it's very distinct. I absolutely love this style. It's from Michael Harmon. And they did with Yogdu Games. And this is Yogdu Games as well. Yeah, they did the Tomb of Immolation. Yeah. And this is the Michael Harmon art on the front of that again.
God, that cover's amazing.
I love all the covers that came with Tomb of Annihilation, Billy Blue. There was an additional one, and then Mike Harmon's as well. Michael Harmon's is my favorite. Like, just his art style is crazy. Like, it's so good. It's really hard to even describe it, except it's incredibly vibrant and crisp, and I just love the way that it looks. The colors really always pop and stay, but the content stays super dark. So Skin Job is basically the story of this, I believe it says the Blood Tree Wood, but basically there's this Lord Feldbane who has these children that have disappeared within the forest, And other people have been disappearing for months, but it hasn't been a problem until his revenues began to drop. And he basically, it's causing a reduction in the amount of blood tree sap harvested. And then his twin children vanish, and he finds adventurers or press gangs adventurers into looking for these apparently kidnapped children. So he has commissioned willing scum to rescue them from the haunting and dangerous blood tree wood. 50 pages of filthy nastiness that should kill 50% of the scum that attempt it. A bunch of puzzles, a number of new monsters, printer-friendly maps, and more macabre art for Michael Harmon. There's a couple pages here, a bone spider, a skelly pooch, and then this really weird porcelain doll head that just strikes that.
That's fucking sick.
It's so cool. So I really loved what they did with Tomb of Immolation, and I got the 5e OSR version and I got the Tiny D6 version. But the art and the way that they wrote it and the way that Yagdu Games does stuff is really fantastic. So it's definitely worth giving it a check out. The PDF is only $8. The physical zine is only $15, and to get a print on demand, to get the Lich hardcover version is only $25 plus shipping, and that comes with the PDF as well. So really nice. Cool. Yeah, really cool. I mean, honestly, I'm sure the content is amazing. I really like what they do, but even just for more Michael Harmon art, I would back this, and did back it. So absolutely worth it. If you're into Merkborg, it's a very beautiful book to have on your shelf if it's anything like the Tomb of Immolation that they put out previously. So yeah, and that has 4 days left on it, and it is 4 times funded, and I do believe, I think they specifically said they're not doing any stretch goals just to make sure it's done and in your hands. Which I can appreciate. You know? Yeah, seriously, I love me some stretch goals.
Totally, absolutely.
I also love when you start a project when it's basically done and I can get it in 3 months instead of 3 years, you know?
Yeah.
Like
feature
like Red Giant. Yeah. So, do you want to do the next one?
Quick, man.
Dude, it was all done. All they had to do was some final revisions. I don't know if they had a bunch of stretch goals, get it approved and get that print on demand code. It was literally like 3-month turnaround, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was crazy short. Yeah, let's do we're going to do our next one. So, sorry. Planar Compass issue 3. So Planar Compass is a series of adventures for, I believe, OSE, right?
Yeah, Old School Essentials, yep.
Yeah, for OSE, that is a fun, weird science planar adventure. In Planar Compass issue 3, you will venture into the planes of law and time. It's a fun little adventure. The Planar Compass are so interesting. I don't know, I think Ryan knows this, but I actually have a Tales of the Infinite Staircase that I laid out adventure, which is very much like a planar travel adventure. And shout out, except I don't play D&D anymore, so I wrote for D&D. Planar Compass is an ongoing third-party zine. Originating on the Astral Sea, each issue builds upon the previous foundation of the weird fantasy. It's got this really great weird fantasy feature to it. In this book, you'll have the setting, two new classes, monsters, and some adventure seats for your parties. If you're looking at this like, well, it's this issue 3, and I don't want to start at issue 3, that's okay, because they actually have a tier. For $12, you can get a PDF copy of all of the issues. For $14, you can get a PDF of just 3 and a physical copy of 3. For $40, you can have the PDF and physical for all of them, 1 through 3. So if you want to take your OSE game on a weird planar adventure where you get to interact with celestial and astral beings of law and other things, it's a fun, weird time. Planar Cup has been really popular. They have reached their funding. They have smashed their funding goal. They were aiming for 600, and they're at 12,000 right now.
12,000. Yeah, I think they smashed it on in the first 10 minutes or something ridiculous.
It's really good. And as somebody who wrote a planar adventure game, it is hard to find a lot of really concise planar information for an adventure. This has 70 hours to go. So if you're listening to this on a podcast, it's probably already gone.
Probably already gone.
If you're sitting here, the 8 of you watching us right now, and whoever like watches the VOD when it goes up sooner, back this. Planar Compass is cool. They make really good stuff. The art is very good. It's the weird fantasy, which I think I'm more of a fan of than Ryan is.
I think it. I mean, I would say yes. I don't. That is where our Venn diagram veers slightly.
Yeah.
You know?
I like weird tech fantasy. Like, I love the vibe of Troika. You know, I really liked Grok. Was really.
Ooh, I can't wait.
Yeah, very much like up my alley. You know.
Yeah, but I think with Planar Compass, I mean, it reminds me, at least a lot of what I've read. I know when they posted on our tweet, I specifically asked, are there going to be tiers to get all 3? Because every Wednesday when Exalted Funeral drops their update, I dig through and probably spend too much money on Exalted Funeral, and I constantly see Planar Compass on there, and I've thought about it, and then I saw number 2 on there, and I kept thinking about it, and then I heard about number 3, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna wait just in case you can get all 3, because $40 to get all 3 and PDFs of all 3 is a fucking steal. Yeah. So even if you don't get the opportunity to back this project now, a lot of times Planar Compass 1 and 2 are up on Exalted Funeral. Right. They're up on like Ratty and Cantati. They're up on, I don't know if they're on Spear Witch. I don't know if Spear Witch does a lot of OSE stuff, but there are so many, depending on where you are in the world, whether it's Rook's Press or Monkey Paw or Floating Chair or just an insane number of shops out there that honestly I keep finding and then just keep spending money at. The original issues are out there, and then I'm sure that number 3
Sponsor
will be
us,
on.
Please.
Yeah, will be
Exalted
on
Funeral, Spear Witch, yeah. Please.
Will be on there soonish. So this kind of reminds me of like if you really want to do Spelljammer in OSC, but maybe a little weirder. This is what it reminds me of.
Totally. This is very up the alley. And also, listen, y'all, they added a class that's Time Priest. Don't you want to just do that? You know?
Yeah. Yeah,
the moment I read that, I'm like, I play that shit. That sounds fucking cool, man.
Yeah, very excited for that. Very excited that, again, like I said, all 3 are available now. If you get it within 70, it's almost 72 hours, so 3 days, basically, is what it is. I don't like when it hits 3 days and it starts cutting down to hours. It reminds me of people that talk about how old their babies are in months until like 37.
Oh, yeah, my kid is like 25 months old.
Okay. I was told by people that have kids that they stop at 2, and I was like, I guess I can tolerate that. But I wouldn't mind if this didn't start, you know, an hours countdown to like maybe 36. You know, Kickstarter, who obviously listens to us, just so you know, 70. I think they do that because in my mind, I think 70 hours is a lot less than 3 days.
Yeah, it is.
You know, but it's not
in my mind.
Yeah, it gives you that little bit of kind of like, get on it now, you know, the sense of urgency. There you go. Exactly. And then the last one we are going to talk about today as well is Axiom Library, which is another old school essentials project for Zemo.
A lot of OSE stuff right now, you know? Yeah. Listen, if you guys play OSE, it's a good time for you.
Well, not only that, I mean, we haven't talked about it, and I don't know if we'll touch on it. So we'll touch on it here. Old School Essentials is actually doing, I believe it's going to be on Kickstarter, unless it's just Exalted Funeral. They're doing the re-releases of all of the OSE stuff. Am I backwards? Oh, I am backwards in this window. Of all the OSE stuff, new box sets for the classic and advanced and stuff like that. So
I probably will actually get that when they release it. Yeah. I wouldn't mind diving a little bit deeper into OSE.
Yeah.
So
I have all of the original books. It would be nice to just have it as one big box set. But it is out there. So this is Axiom Library. This is from Giuseppe Rotondo. Axiom Library is 4 Old School Essential zines expanded and collected into one hardcover book. It is compatible with most simulacra and clones of the early edition. So as most people know, OSE is kind of I think now it is kind of like one of the, it is one of the premier kind of like retro clones of like 1E. I think, and I am not an expert in retro clones, so if I put my foot in my mouth, I'm sorry. But I think along with like Lich Lord, I think it's called, and one or two other, like the BNX, things like that, they are the what originally started as the OSR, which is basically a series of retro clones, but OSE has kind of now become at least as far as I know and have heard of.
It's like the old school essential, you know?
Yeah, it is the essentials of the old school, exactly. It has become one of the premier versions. I just know a lot of people that have talked about it. They do 1E well and kind of clean it up for modern tastes. And I've read through the books. They're really, really good. They put out a lot of really good adventures for a lot of really good people. I know Diego Noguera, Diego Old Skull, who does, he actually did the cover of this that we get a chance to talk about. We'll talk about it sometime. Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Oh, I remember you backing that.
No. I won this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we'll talk about it. For those that didn't see it on podcast, it's Neon Lords of the Toxic Wasteland. But anyway,
I do remember you winning that. Right.
Yeah. He did Halls of the Blood King. He did Halls of the Blood King, which is one of the official adventures with art from Justin Jones, which is absolutely stunning. So anyway, Old School Essentials, it's fantastic. In a nutshell, this project we're talking about right now is Axiom Library. It gives you special rules and tables for new characters, absent players, alternate arcane and divine magic, magical mishaps, divine wrath, curses, quests, tables, and more tables. You get all four of those adventures. Yeah, you get all four of the originals. Well, 3 of the original zines, plus I believe it's a new one. Wondrous Weavings, Warped and Weird, Mysteriously Missing and Merrily Met, Notable Novices and Notorious Newcomers, and Pious Prayers and Powerful Prodigies. I'm very proud of myself for that. All put together into one gorgeous book. And then if you go to their page, it actually gives you a breakdown of each individual zine and what you get in them. And the zines themselves are beautiful. I kind of want to just get these little, because they're like half size. They're like tall, but very thin, but they're still like a full zine. It's not a pamphlet. They're really, really, really cool looking. So, cool. Yeah, they're really, really cool. So anyway, all of that original content, plus I believe it's the 4th one, is all getting put into one hardcover book. And it's really not that expensive. If you actually want to get a PDF and signed print, it's only 15 euros, which is 18 US American doll hairs.
18 and fake then, money. Euros is the real money, dude. Fuck America.
Yeah. All right. So if you want to get, if you want to get the PDF and print, Spotify. There you go. Hey, listen, if Joe Rogan's not getting removed, we're not getting removed. So, well, I guess we didn't get $100 million. Anyway, for €7, you can get the PDF and print with a hardcover voucher. It talks about stretch goals. There are stretch goals we are confident to add to the Axiom Library without delaying the delivery. And I believe they've unlocked just about all of them because it is funded for what looks like, nope, wrong scroll wheel. $7,000, which is way above what they needed. So they have unlocked.
I love literally these every stretch goal. They're like, yeah, our goal's $5,000 or $500. It's like, well, you guys are at 7,000 now. So
yeah, every goal that they've met. I think the last stretch goal was all the way down at 6,400 euros. So it's there. So it is a 5.5 by 8.5 hardcover book, as I said, with all the stuff in it. Both versions fulfilled by ttrpg, so you'll get a fulfillment code. And we've talked about it recently. They're slightly more expensive now, but the quality of the ttrpg prints are much better.
Good, you know?
Yeah. And if I was going to do a project that had especially international shipping right now, there are some delays with ttrpg because there's delays with supply chains and paper and cardboard all over the world. I don't know the ins and outs. I'm sure it's a pain in the dick, but I can't believe that it's not a little bit less of a pain in the dick than dealing with a printer, having them sent to you, and then having to ship it out yourself. Right. So ttrpg is a way that a lot of people fulfill projects in Kickstarter. You get a print-on-demand code, which often gives you the book at cost to printing, which is generally not that expensive. I think hardcover books are like $12 to $17, I think, depending on how big they are.
You did this with Red Giant, to reference back to Red Giant, and it was like $14 or something. Yeah. Not expensive at all.
So a really, really cool project. More OSE content for you people that want to get into OSE. There's a lot of good stuff in Zemo right now. Axiom Library, snag that. Planner Compass, snag all of those. And then win the new box sets of OSE's content comes out, snag those as well, and you'll have plenty of stuff to do all of your adventures in. I know in the original thing that I bought, the first adventure, which I think is called Hole in the Oak, came with it. So we'll see what comes with the new box set. But otherwise, 2 amazing OSE projects that we talked about today that are definitely worth getting it. So wrap up Lucid Sea of Dreams, Planner Compass, Skin Job, and Axiom Library. All great projects, all funding in Zemo, all within the next 3 to 6 days will be ending. So I'll try to get the podcast out a little bit sooner tonight. All funded, but there's no such thing as too much funding. So go check all of those projects out.
These people deserve more money, damn it. This is good shit they're putting out.
It's good shit. I backed every one of these. What I decided to start doing is actually have a separate page that's not the one on the podcast. So I'm logged out of Kickstarter and the one that shows. So I stop like exposing myself and the amount of money I spend on projects.
But then you just send it anyway, so it's not like it would have mattered, you know?
Hey, yeah, but you know, they don't need to see like the 30 other anyway. So that's Kickstart the Podcast for this week. 4 great projects. We're going to continue with our Zemo Kickstart the Podcast next week. We might actually be able to wrap up all of the projects that our initial tweet asking, hey, tell us about your project. The responses that we got for that, and then hit some other projects that are out on Kickstarter, on Indiegogo, on Itch, and some other ones as well.
I've got a few. There's a lot of Into the Odd stuff coming out for Into the Odd Remastered. Yeah. And you know, I'm a little Into the Odd fucking fanboy, so
yeah, Mark of the Odd, get it. Fun stuff next week. We don't need to get a little preview of that. So that's Kickstart the Podcast for this week.
We did it.
We did it, and right exactly on time. We're getting better.
We're doing really good today.
We're doing good. I'm caffeinated. You're awake. Yeah.
I didn't sleep at all, so I'm super awake actually.
For those who do listen to the podcast, just so you know, this is a little more raw, I think, than maybe some other ones. We stream the podcast. We stream this directly onto Twitch, and then the VODs get put directly to YouTube as is, and I do basically no editing for the podcast, just chopping out kind of our break with what is now a commercial break for our socials. So if you like kind of raw, get what you get podcasting, we are the one for you.
We're great. So, we're just we stream and stream of consciousness at the same time, you know, like it's
exactly.
There's nothing going on upstairs.
Yeah. What you see is what you get. So today we are going to be talking about
what are we talking about today?
We're talking about 12 years.
Talking about 12 years.
We are talking about 12 years. Let me get some of this stuff out of the way real quick. And we will kick over to I'm gonna stay on this window for a second, so we can actually, as we talked about earlier, I'm gonna actually go to the the one where my screen's a little bit bigger to look at the actual 12-year zine. This is just gorgeous.
It's so good looking. You know, I'm furious at how awesome the one with that he made for the other creators with the
oh my god
skull on it. I'm like, I'm mad how cool that shit is, bro.
It's really good. And it's not kind of coming through as well on camera for those that can't see it. I'm showing the 12-year zine, so go look at our VOD. But it's like this green, it's green foiling, so it's really nice and shiny and beautiful. And as we talked about in the interview with Max Moon, the zine itself is black, the foiling is green, all green. And then it has these green staples on the side that just keep it going. And it's just such a beautifully done zine. And as I said, he hand makes all of these. One of the other things that I actually...
we're about to read through. This is a fantastic game. Like, reading through this was so enjoyable. And I was bummed out because I was going to just run a solo by myself this week. And my week just didn't pan out. But this is a fucking clever game. Man, this is someone who, like, has a good idea of what is enjoyable about like this style, and we'll get into it, of like dungeon-esque crawling, hex crawling, and how to make it more enjoyable for one person, you know?
Or multiple people, because there are ways, and we'll talk about that.
And the way you can do multiplayer is clever as well, you know?
It's so smart. Well, and then I really want to talk about those numbers, because we'll talk about those numbers.
We'll talk about numbers.
Yeah. So one of the other things I want to show people is this. I haven't shown you this yet, have I, Hunter?
Oh, no.
So this
so cool.
This beautiful folder I got from Max Moon's website. and it comes with a ton of content, like extra stuff in it, like this
That's
bookmarker.
Bullshit. I'm so angry about that.
Oh yeah, wait a minute. It's a bookmarker, but it also's got the enemy like list that you can do on the back, and it comes with the monster tables, all of the quick plays. It comes with a bunch of party sheets, delving sheets, and hex sheets all inside, and this beautiful like spray paint art in this folder was done by the Eye Wizard. I believe, if I'm not wrong, there were only 10 of these 12 years folders that exist in the world. I got number 9. It was actually the last one left on Max Moon's website after I discovered Eye Wizard. Just check them out on Instagram. They do this really, really, really beautiful boxes and art like this, and one-offs of a lot of stuff, and really amazing things. But I was so excited to actually get my hands on one of these. And then when you order it, you get all of this extra stuff in it, like all of the handouts basically inside the game. So you don't even need to like use the stuff. I don't like using things that are in the book. I would rather buy a second book.
Either. Yeah, I 100% don't either. I like my books to be pristine forever.
Yeah.
They are.
It's like
I like that.
Yeah, it's like Putrescence Regnant. I got the vinyl regular one and the special edition, so I could play the regular one and never take the special edition one outside of anything and probably frame it. So I would rather buy... I have, in fact, bought 2 versions of books that have those tear-out maps in the back, so that I can tear the map out of one and not tear the map out of the other. But
or so you just get the PDF and order a print for the PDF.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I would definitely just make photocopies of this stuff too. But anyway, this is from the Eye Wizard. They have some amazing content. Maybe we'll see a little bit more of that sometime in the future. But really cool thing. And the way it works with 12 years, since it is a folder, you can actually put your 12 years zine into the folder. And then this piece here holds it in place with the Max Moon.
I'm
and
so
then
mad at this right now.
It folds up, and then you have it all tucked into one safe little spot. So very excited for this. Super, super cool. And that is kind of the preview of just how beautiful
the preview of the book. We're about the deep dive.
Yeah, the preview of the game. So let me go to the correct screen. I need to name these slightly differently. Yeah. So this is 12 years. This is by Max Moon. I don't know if you have heard of him recently. He was just on our podcast about half an hour ago.
If you're just now tuning in, you missed a whole interview with the person who wrote this. So
you know what's great about you as well. I think you're having a similar experience to mine. You know that I have a friend of the show who is an amazing content creator. And it's a lot of those like don't meet your heroes kind of situations. Yeah. I've met a couple of mine or people that I really, really enjoy. And I'm batting 1,000 right now on finding just amazing people.
Yeah, dude, you know, friend of the show, Johan Noor, and friend of the show, Max Moon, both of them, you're just like, wow, you guys are like really just cool guys. Like, honestly, I could have chopped it up with Max Moon about like a variety of subjects for like quite a while. Like, I'm really interested in like, you know, what synthesizers he uses on stage, if he's using like actual like keyboard synthesizers, or if they're just building noise machines, which by the way, guys, is fucking awesome to do, and I highly suggest it. But yeah, and then who you're talking about, who is the king himself, Circe Victory, is fucking great. But yeah, meet the people you aspire to, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And we have, I mean, again, we've been fortunate enough to meet those people, to have a couple of them on the show, and hopefully we'll be able to continue meeting people whose content, I know a lot of people don't like using the word content, whose games we really, really enjoy. And like I said, so far, all of the people that we've met have been fantastic. And,
I think you have to say content though, because we're having artists on too, and it's not just the game that we enjoy; it's the art. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it is content, but I think some people don't want to be called content creators. They are artists, and they are game designers, and we'll go with that. But as you said, Max Moon, super awesome guy. Honestly, I think we could have talked forever. Especially the amount of stuff that we hit in the 15 minutes before the show started. It just ran the gamut. All good things, or at least interesting things.
So 12 years.
But what we're talking about today is this game 12 years. So it is not a super long zine. It's only 36 pages, and a lot of that in the end is play sheets and things like that.
Oh my god, it's hyperlinked.
I
did not realize that.
I didn't realize it either because I didn't read the PDF for this one. I actually physically wanted to hold the zine while I was doing it. Max.
Good for you, buddy.
Completely hyperlinked. I'm so proud. Yeah. So 12 years. The initial story. I actually want to read this whole poem because it gives you the whole thing, and I love that it's a poem.
Yeah.
So to kick off. 12 years ago today, the wild prophet returned from Fae. Madness about their addled minds, starkly waving antler tines. A smile shone of secrets learned, and visions of the known world burned. The prophets ranting hardly heard, you alone did heed their word. The king of old is risen bone, rots with hatred on his throne. Bear the skull that bore a crown, a coronation shall lay him down. 12 years from now, if none succeed, the king's dead army on fearsome steed brazenly burns all that lives, and death becomes a welcome gift. So,
bars, dog, straight up bars in this bitch.
So basically, the story of 12 years is that there is this realm of Fae that exists. And every 12 years, the Lich King, who lurks in the sunken castle of the south, waits for the completion of a coronation ritual. Basically, you need to put a crown on his head after he rises within 12 years of his rising, or he will raise up an undead army and wipe out everything. And you're probably gonna fail. Is basically the introduction to the game.
It's like a mix of Final Fantasy X and Adventure Time, because Final Fantasy X has Sin, you have to kill every 10 years. And then there's Adventure Time has the Lich King, or the Lich, that's so cool. It's a very cool concept for a game.
Yeah, it's great. And what's really cool about it too is it is a DM-less tabletop role-playing game that you can play solo or with multiple players, and the with multiple players is so interesting. So we'll get into that. But you basically, everything you do, whether it's Hexploration or dungeon delving, is all randomly generated, and all of your things as you go are tables that you roll on. So to do it by yourself, it is super easy to just sit down and have this adventure. And we'll explain kind of how that works. But you basically assemble a party, you sojourn out into the wilderness, you find the Lich King's resting place, you coronate him, or the whole world ends. Good luck. You alternate between, like I said, hexploring and dungeon delving. Hexploring is when you actually have hexes on a map that are more of like a large environment area, like a forest or a lake or something like that. And dungeon delving is where we actually go room by room, and more kind of the transitional like dungeon delving. That's why it's called delving.
It's funny because last week on Kingdoms we talked about this difference between micro play and macro play in that game, and this game also has a micro play and a macro play. The macro play is your hex explore, and you're going on a hex crawl, which I fucking love hex crawls. I love hex crawls. I'm
falling more and more in love with them. Yeah, absolutely.
Dude, I think 5e underutilized hex crawls, whereas old D&D was like very hex crawly. And I think I'm glad that it's old school revival. Point being, and then you have the micro, which is the dungeon delving.
Yeah, I just love the concept of the hex crawl with the dungeon delve. Like Bastards from Micah Anderson is a really cool, very small game, and the way that they do their adventures is it's just 3 columns of 7 hexes, and there's a dungeon somewhere on there, and then you just kind of go. When Chris Bissett did, my brain doesn't work, so I apologize.
It's the end of the night for you, so you're about to go to bed, so that's forgivable.
I've been up for a long time. It's not Treasures of the Troll King. It is the is it the Eyeless God? Regardless, that adventure is a hex crawl, which is fantastic, but it has those moments in it where you kind of do more of a dungeon delve. So it's just a really cool concept that I like a lot in a lot of the OSR rules light games that are out right now. The God of Many Faces. Sorry about that.
Gotcha.
Is the pamphlet adventure. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I posted it on our Instagram. It's a pamphlet adventure for Merkborg that is based around a hex crawl. And it reminds me of this. Long story short, we love hexes. They're fantastic. Utilize them, and they're utilized really, really well in an interesting way here in 12 years. To continue with the introduction, there are no turns in 12 years. Play is considered parallel. So if you do have someone else that you are playing with in your solo adventure, but competitively or collaboratively, it all happens kind of at the same time. And again, I keep wanting to talk about it, but I'm going to wait till we get to that part to talk about how cool the rules are to play this solo game with multiple people.
Totally.
But what it basically says is death is undoubtedly in your future for any given party member. It's unlikely that your first party you make will succeed, and we'll talk about party creation in a second. So it'll probably take multiple adventuring parties with you playing the entire party before you're able to successfully crown the Lich King, or at least get there, or 12 years passes and everything falls to ruin and destruction.
And like and we'll get into it too. There are mechanics that will take years away from you.
A lot of them.
Very quickly. Yeah.
Well, because you're in this like Fae realm. You're in the Fae. So as we talked about in the interview with Max, who is very into this kind of like dark aspect of Fae, kind of pre-Disney whimsy.
It's an old traditional Fae, like old superstitious traditional Fae.
The good Fae, yes.
Yeah. I fucking love this. I love this so much. I like my Fae to be like creepy and creepy and like, oh, you're so beautiful. I just want to stare at you forever. So you're gonna be here with me forever. And you're like, oh wait, what? Fuck no, wait, what?
Yep. Exactly. So, and that's where you're taking your adventuring party. So good luck. So there's a getting started section that basically talks about you use dice. It's a lot of note taking, but I don't think it sounds like fun note taking, which
I don't think in my head. I don't like taking notes, and reading through this, I was like, this is not too much notes. I'm good with this.
I absolutely never take notes. So session to session, I have no idea what happened last time. So it's fun playing a dumb character where I'm just like, wait, what are we doing again? Because I have no clue. And then it says it comes with exploration sheets, delving sheets, and quick start rules in the back, which is fantastic. And once you get the hang of it, you're basically just going to use those quick start sheets as references for your roll tables, and that's about it. So to start it off, you assemble your party. So in this game, you are not a character, you are the entire party, which is really, really cool way to do this. And there are 4 different types of party members you can have. So the first thing that you do is roll 4d4 to determine starting party members. So there's obviously 4, you roll 4 of them, you see what you get. Why don't you roll 4d4 and see what your party looks like?
I got a 4-4-1-1.
You got 2 giants and 2 hermits.
Perfect. Got some healers and I got some big boys. So
you record those on a character sheet. You name them. Any character without a name dies instantly.
I love that part. I was like, okay, fuck you, man. Nope, you gotta name them.
Yeah. Roll for starting weapons, loot, and gold, and set off in search of the Lich Queen. What's really interesting is your character can die in character creation. So if they do, you have one less character. There's a ton of ways for your
character to die in character creation.
Constantly.
Oh my gosh.
So to go over the party members you get, we'll go over all 4 real quick. You basically get an archetype, which is how their HP, the power that they have, and their weakness, which is interesting. You have a hermit, a rogue, fey folk, and a giant. Hermit has 8 HP, the power of healing, and their weakness is pacifist. The rogue has 12 HP, they can disable traps, and their weakness is self-preservation. The fey folk have 10 HP, their power is lore, and their weakness is iron averse. And there's a giant who has 30 HP, their power is brute force, and their weakness is slow.
But he's a little slow. He's a little slow boy, you know? Same guy.
The power descriptions, when you're healing, which is for the hermit, when the party rolls a successful hit, the hermit may choose to fully heal the party instead of the party doing any damage to the enemy. Very cool. Disable traps, just automatically table traps. Lore, the party cannot become lost in the Fey and may freely evade any lost in the Fey rolls and circumstances.
That is massive.
Huge.
If you start out with a Fey folk, listen, you are gonna have at least partially an easier time. Not an easy time, but there's a lot of fucking up that you might not run into.
Yep. And then with the giant, you get brute force, which is +1 damage to all of your party rolls, which is cool. The weaknesses I really, really love too. Pacifist, which is again the hermit. Up until now, the hermit has always been a pacifist, never trained in combat, so they're unable to use armor, shields, and any weapons other than a staff, so they start with a staff. Self-preservation, which is a rogue. They avoid combats, letting others take the hit, so they can reroll once when a successful attack targets the rogue. If the reroll targets the rogue, they will take the damage. So basically, they can avoid getting hit. So it's a weakness. Feels a little bit like a power.
Yeah, they just pass the hit off to somebody else, you know?
Iron Averse cannot use metal weapons or armor and takes +1 damage from metal weapons in PvP combat. And then, and this is for the Fey, and they roll 1d6 for starting weapons, sling, staff, bow, or sling, staff, bow. I like how it all sticks to this d6, and they'll just number it twice instead of doing the d3. So it's because there is no d3 dice.
You know, that's good because I've never held a d3 in my life. So
I know it exists. But it's got a weird rolly.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's kind of like a rounded triangle. And then slow, which is the giant, while evading, cannot successfully retrieve loot or achieve any other result requiring a 4 on an evasion roll. An evasion roll of 4 has the same effect as a 3, in which the party escapes freely. And we'll get into evasion. It's a huge component of the game here in just a little bit. You roll for starting gold, 1, 5, 10, or 20 on a d4. And then it goes into weapons and damage. You roll 1d6 on the table. And for each party member and any newcomer who arrives later, except Fey folk and hermits. So there are opportunities to meet new characters that can join your party, new friends throughout the adventure. I'll start at the bottom, actually. The weakest one is a sling. It's 1d4, cost a gold. There's a staff, which is 1d6, which costs a gold. There's a bow, which is 1d8, which is 6 gold. A sword, which is 1d8, which is 6 gold. A spiked flail, which is 1d10, which is 8 gold. And an axe, 1d12 for 10 gold. So you roll this, and clearly for hermits, you don't have to, because they just get their bow or their staff. And then for Fey folk, numbers 4, 5, and 6 are something that they roll on their class anyway. They can't have axe, spiked flail, or sword. So really, the only one that could have an axe, spiked flail, or sword is the rogue with the giant. And then loot. A lot of tables here in the beginning before it hits the core, but it makes sense. Loot can be freely shared.
It makes a lot of sense. It is very table heavy at first, and reading through it the first time I was like, oh, there's a lot of tables. And then when I got into the meat of it, I was like, oh, okay, cool. It
totally makes sense.
Good that it's first.
Yeah, it makes sense. You know me, a lot of times I like to see the rules first. I think it makes a lot of sense with this. And it does get you rules as you go, because you did get the character creation that talks about some of the rules too. Loot may be freely shared and traded amongst individual party members. Each starting party member and any newcomers begin with 1 loot item. Loot is determined by the roll. There's no limit to what a party can carry. So you are pack horses. There are 12 loot items. Some of them have the possibility of becoming unique magical items. And you can look at we'll go over the magical items chart. But you get a mirror, mushrooms, coin, boots, a wooden shield, another weapon, armor, a book, ring, a coffer full of 50 gold, a key, and a crown. And the ones that can become magical are the mirror, the mushroom, the key, and the crown. Which
because you're gonna roll for the next one. You're gonna roll for the quality of these things too. Well,
mirror, mushroom, key, and crown kind of sounds like either like an indie like rock band's album title.
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
I'd listen to
that. Yeah. It's reminding me of an album that I can't place it, or a band, and I can't place it in my mind what it is. It's a something and something.
It's Coheed and Cambria.
But anyway, not quite, but yeah, it's there. It's close enough. It's I think it is something like The Key and the Crown. My brain doesn't work.
They do have a song that's called. They have one that's The Crowning, and then one that's The Key. And
yeah, but it's a little more folk rocky, is what I'm thinking of. I'll find it. I'll post it somewhere.
Nothing's better than Coheed and Cambria, and I will die on that hill. So,
I like Coheed. So loot quality. You roll 1d6, and number 1 is broken, which reduces the value by 1 gold. Mundane, which does nothing. Ancient, which doubles the value. Ornate, which multiplies the value by 10. Magic, which roll on the magic's table, reduce value to 0 gold, and then roll twice / trap. You roll twice on this table, combining qualities and effects. There are notes to the loot, which I really, really enjoy.
I really like it too, because there's a lot of like individual instances that might happen that Max like lays out here. Like if you have like a broken, if you have to roll twice and you have a broken magic item, it's like, well, it's still, the magic still works.
Yeah. Or even like a trapped item that's trapped twice. So yeah, they're really interesting. I mean, I know that they play tested the shit out of this game, so I can only imagine it came up and
like
came up and came up. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It does sound like they really just paid attention to the little tiny minutia of things that could happen where you might have a question. I feel like it's probably gonna be answered. So
and there's a lot of that in this game, whereas you go on because it's all random generation, and like obviously in random generation some instances can pop up, and they're almost all accounted for, and I couldn't really think of any that weren't accounted for, even when it went to the hex generation. And I was like reading some of the like, oh well, if this happens, this is what's going to happen, and you're like, oh, that's interesting that you had a contingency for this. But yeah, there is a contingency for fucking everything you can come across. They obviously play tested the shit out of this game. So
absolutely. Loot notes: round the value down to the nearest whole coin. There are no smaller increments than 1 gold. If rolling more than 1 effect, broken applies first. Broken magic items retain their magical powers. I'm going to skip the long one, go to the bottom first, then come back. I love this one. This one really gets me. If 2 or more of the same results are rolled, such as ancient, you just read the first instance as very and apply the effect twice. So if you get an ancient sword, it's just a very ancient sword. Yeah. But the effect is doubled. The value is doubled, so now the value is doubled. It's like a Big Mac or whatever, the double. I don't remember what fake, like what garbage meat place sells that.
That's In-N-Out, but you know, whatever.
Oh, In-N-Out is overrated garbage. Keep your Bible verses yourself. If a second 6, did you have an In-N-Out opinion that we needed to go over?
I was gonna say, I think In-N-Out, I don't think it's God like everyone else talked about, but I had In-N-Out last night and I was like, this is good. This is perfectly fine. You know?
They have In-N-Out in your state?
You saw my face. Yeah, they have In-N-Out in Dallas, man. Dallas is the next LA, except worse in every way somehow.
Well, it's, I mean, LA has a lot of red in it, but not quite.
Yeah, Five Guys has better fries, which is an opinion that was posted in our chat, which I know we're not trying to like, we're podcasting, so we're not trying to talk to chat all the time, but just for the record, Five Guys does have better fries.
I don't know. I don't really eat
fast food burger joints. Ryan. Why not?
They don't eat meat. If a second 6 is rolled when determining quality, the item is trapped and deals 1d12 damage upon retrieval. If a loot roll results in trapped loot when assembling the party, record it. If there's no rogue in the party, then the trap goes off, dealing damage to the corresponding party member. If one or more party members dies while assembling the party, the adventure may begin with fewer than 4 party members. So if you roll to have a trapped item and it kills one of your people, they're dead, and you just go with fewer people. Yeah.
Yeah, they're dead. You have 1 less party member. Hopefully you bump into somebody along the way that you can recruit into your party, because you can die immediately. So damn funny. Honestly, like so clever. And this, I mean, like, this is just like a clever little game.
I really do. There's just like, again,
so
it's simple, and it's hard to make I feel like it's sometimes hard to make simple really good, like, or feel.
Dude, this would be so hard to make, like simple and randomly generated. Like, that's hard.
It kind of reminds me. I feel like Into the Odd and like Maze Rats remind me of games where you're just like, fuck, like those mechanics are so simple but make so much sense. It just hurts my brain almost a little bit for just how you're just like, oh, you just do this, and you're good, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so and this reminds me of that a little bit.
So magics, we have a nice D8 table here to roll for the magic effects on items. Once again, like all the other random generation, there are some like caveats at the end, and they're called, I think, unique items, but we'll get there when we get there. Going through the table, 1 through 8, first is going to be cursed. The effect is compelled to retrieve or consume. Use immediately and keep if not consumable. Permanent -1 to damage rolls, and it's permanent. It's forever. So curse is a fun one. Hope you don't fail that roll. Clairvoyant is our second choice. Number 2, clairvoyant. Choose which party member takes damage rather than rolling. Yeah, so that's interesting. It's like, yeah, I get to see the future, and I know that you're going to take damage instead of us rolling for it. And it's also a permanent effect. 3 is rejuvenate, resurrect, and fully heal a single party member. That's a really good one because resurrect and fully heal. It is single use though. 4 is moon kissed. In the place of a successful attack, heal any party member 5 HP or use once at any time to fully heal the party. And this is basically on your choice. 5 is demonic. Instantly possesses one party member rolled at random. And the party member encounters, or the party immediately encounters them as an enemy. It's got a little asterisk and we'll go down. And the asterisk is if demonic loot items are rolled when assembling a party, the possessed party member dies and no combat occurs. So if you find this item out in the wild, somebody gets possessed. But if it's during party creation, that party member just dies. And that's the end of them. 6 is thorning. Covered in magical thorns, add +1 damage. Or it's like +1 to damage, or use once to add +1 to any attack roll. It's another choice one. 7, Fey touched. One enemy falls under your spell and obeys your command, effectively joining your party, single use. And 8 is death. Instantly kills one enemy, single use. Fantastic. Amazing. God, yeah. There's some bad options on here. And previously, it said magic items we lower the value to 0, and right here it kind of explains magic items are too fearsome and powerful to find a willing buyer. In the multiplayer game, players are welcome and encouraged to buy and sell and trade magic items between them, but NPCs will not buy magic items. So their gold value is inherently 0, which I thought was really interesting. Kind of scrolling down to our next page. We're on page 9 now. Some magic items are considered unique and have special effects, like I said before. And they're listed below. Specific loot quality combinations determine unique items. For example, when a roll results in finding a magic mirror or magic key, do not roll a power. In contrast, a magic mushroom becomes unique only if the magic power is either Fey, touch, or death. So for unique items, we have magic mirror. So if you roll mirror and then you roll that the quality is magical, you don't roll power, the party is immediately compelled to enter a one-way portal and become lost in the Fey for 1d10 years. This is a 12-year game, and you can out the gate just go, fuck it, 10 years are gone. You're done. Not done, but you're pretty close. Yeah, big oof on that one. Our next one, I love how brutal this game is, by the way. Like, I do not dislike it. Like, I really do enjoy it. But also, if you have a Fey in your party, I assume that you just ignore the lost to Fey roll. Like, because you have Fey touching your party.
It does say in the rules you ignore all lost in the Fey rolls. So, Magic Mirror. So, yeah. I rolled a party with no Fey in it. So, I got 2 giants and 2 hermits. And we're going to the... Hey, actually, let's just see if my party rolled this real quick. I just want to see.
I was going to ask you once you finished it.
I rolled a 10. Yeah. I rolled a 10.
Well, why don't you, before we get too deep in the magic items, why don't you roll a loot? Why don't you roll a d12?
Yeah, let's roll some loot. This is a short book. We're making good time. Like, let's roll some loot. Yeah. Okay, first thing I'm rolling is a d10, right?
No, a d12.
Where'd my dice roll just go? Oh, it's right here. I'm an idiot. D20. Okay, d20. Gotcha. 6.
Yep. 6 is a weapon.
It's a weapon. Ooh.
Roll another one. Roll another one.
Okay, yeah. We don't want that result. 7.
Armor.
Okay, cool. Armor.
Why don't you roll me 1d4?
1.
The mirror.
You narrow it down to just the first 4. Yeah.
Well, no. It was the 4 magical ones. I was going to see which magical item you got.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Remember the band, Mirror, Mushroom,
D6?
Key, and Crown? Yeah. Then roll a d6.
5.
Dude, no fucking way. There's no way you literally just rolled Magic Mirror after we talked about Magic Mirror.
I did. You want me to share my screen real quick?
No, I believe you. That's fine. But yeah. So anyway, so you didn't roll a Fae either. You have 2 giants and 2 hermits. You're fucked.
I have 2 giants.
Why don't you roll a d10?
I rolled a 10. I did. I rolled a 10.
No, you didn't.
I did roll a fucking 10.
Guys, we are not making this up for the show.
My party immediately out the gate is like, fuck it. You got 12 years? Nah, you got 2.
You got 2.
And since I don't have a Fae in my group, there's a ton of circumstances in which you're going to lose more years.
Yeah.
Fucking big hysterical. Okay, continue on with the unique magic items. We only have a couple more. The magic key can be used once to transport the party directly to any stone portal, which we'll get to. Very useful. Fae touched mushrooms. So the mushrooms, there's 2 different mushrooms, right? Mushrooms are a magic item, but remember, like it said before, you can roll on the magic table for it and have any power, but there's 2 unique ones. Fae touched mushroom. Party is compelled to eat the mushroom and becomes lost in the Fae for 1d4 years. Brutal. Death mushroom. A random party member, excluding Fae folk, is compelled to eat the mushroom and immediately dies. Cool. Very cool. And the last one, ancient magic crown. An alternative win condition. So an alternative condition to winning this game. Upon finding and destroying the original magic crown, the lich is destroyed. In the unlikely scenario that a party member begins the game with this loot item, the Gnomeling Thief, Popplecrop Slink kills them and steals the crown. So this is a magic item that you can find that creates an alternative win condition. Inversely, if you start with it, a fucking gnome named Popplecrop is going to steal it from you.
I think Popplecrop comes up later in the friends. Yeah, dude, like literally, yay, I rolled this statistically incredibly improbable thing. Okay, you all get murdered. Start again.
Good times.
After being lost in the Fae for 1d10 years. But so the only way to roll ancient magic crown,
you have to roll roll the crown, then roll a 6, and then roll ancient and magic. And yeah, so it's like it's so unlikely.
Statistically, you have to roll a 12, and then you have to roll a 6, and then you have to roll a 3 and a 5.
Yeah.
But if you do those things, if that little secret cheat code, you're dead.
It's not impossible. It's really exceedingly unlikely.
I wish.
But it's not impossible.
I wish I was good at statistics sometimes because it would make game creation easier. I realize now that my inability to really do math. Whew.
You know, I don't wish I was good at statistics because then I'd have to learn statistics. So I'm good. I didn't
say I wanted to learn it. I said I just wanted to know it. You know, there's a difference. Like osmosis.
I want to plug into the Matrix.
Plug me into the Matrix. Give me some Jeet Kune Do and some statistics, and I'm good to go. You know.
So combat's really interesting in this. I really like combat, and I'm good to keep reading for a little bit. So I'm gonna read the combat rules as well. Combat is considered a chaotic brawl rather than a tactical turn-by-turn encounter, which is fantastic because we all know turn-by-turn can get a little brutal sometimes. Not that there's anything wrong with it; it works well in some situations, but I think we've all been sitting there on our phones. You know, maybe not me, but
not brutal in a fun way. Brutal in like a slog way.
In a slog way. Attack rolls represent a simultaneous series of attacks and parries by everyone in the room. Combat consists of a single 1d6 that applies to the whole party and all enemies in the encounter using the following results table.
I love it. I love it so much.
Cool. Yeah, me too. Absolutely. Sorry, I lost you there for a second.
Keep going.
It might be my connection that might not be good today. It's because it's cold outside, you know. That's how
It's
it
like
works.
80 degrees here. What are you talking about?
Is it really? God,
high at 82 today.
Fuck you guys. Fuck California. Burn the whole state down. Okay.
Oh, 84. I'm sorry, 84 today.
Man, cool.
Anyway, keep going.
Combat rules. So D6, right? On a 1. So the table is divided up. Let's read it real quick. It's result, deals as in who deals damage, take as in who takes damage, the type of damage, and then the effect. So on the 1, the enemy is the person who deals damage. The party takes damage. It's a palpable hit, which is kind of like a crit, essentially. And the effect is it's double damage. So you'll take double damage. 2 is enemy deals, party takes the hit, type is a hit, it's normal damage. 3, enemy deals, party takes the hit, it's a weak hit, which is half damage. And then 4 is a tie. Both deal, both hit, it's a weak hit, and both deal half damage. On 5, party deals, enemy takes, it's a hit, normal damage. And on 6, party, enemy, palpable hit, double damage. So basically 1 through 3, the party takes damage. 4, both take damage. And then 5 and 6 are where you really want to hit. It's actually almost not statistically totally like, but it's very, very close to a 2d6 system and a partial success.
Yeah, I guess. Well, I mean, there's no bell curve. You have a 1 in 6 chance of hitting any of these.
That's right. There's no bell curve, but there's almost like 4 is a partial success, right?
Yeah.
And then 5 is a success, and 6 is a critical success.
I see what you're saying. So there's like, it's like half and half. Like 1 to 3 is generally like even or bad for the bad guys, and 4 through 6 is even or bad for the good guys. Or scratch that and reverse it. But yeah,
reverse it.
I see what you're saying.
Scratch it, reverse it, throw it up, chop it up. So it's a really interesting system, and it's very easy to understand. And immediately when you read it, you're like, this makes sense. And you know what I fucking love? I love that this game, Todd Howard, it just works. You know,
it just works. I absolutely love this. It just works so well. I love this. So we're going to go over damage here in a second, but literally because you're playing an entire party at one time, the fact that an entire round of combat is 1d6 roll. I mean, it's a little bit more because you roll damage for the stuff. You add a couple of things in. But can you imagine playing this game in a traditional like you're controlling 4 people plus bad guys, and you're literally sitting there rolling every single character's dice. So like if you're fighting like 4 things, you're rolling turns for 8 different things on the board, calculating all those things. Like it just becomes, you're at this point, you're just like you have to like the click at the desk with like the piece of paper that's just like rolling out.
Is that even fun at that point? I know the opinion that is not fun. Yeah,
no, that'd be terrible. That'd be just. Can you imagine? Okay, so first of all, 5e, we all played it. It has its faults. Can you imagine doing an entire slot? Listen, it is what it is. Can you imagine doing an entire combat against some like bullet sponge 350 HP monster with like 4 party members all by yourself just rolling dice? No. So you use this instead.
I would that's a nightmare. I would hate that. I would hate the shit out of that.
This is so clean and so simple and so well done. Like it's literally just like you said, split it in half, and it's either equal or bad for one, or equal or bad for the other, or equal or good for the other. Like it's just really, really smart done. Do you want to do damage?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, you want me to take it over?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
All right. So damage is dealt by the whole party or as a group of enemies rather than as individual characters, which is exactly what we just talked about. After a successful attack roll, combine and roll all damage dice for the party, calculate the total, distribute it amongst the enemies as you choose. And I like this. Managing enemy hit points can become tedious. Yes, Max, it can. That's literally what we just talked about. So damage is dealt to a single enemy of your choice, and when the enemy dies, excess damage is carried over. So in simple terms, you roll this d6, right? And let's just say that you roll a 6. So your party deals damage, the enemy takes it. It's a palpable, we'll say 5. It's just a hit, and you do normal damage, okay? So if your 2 giants and your 2 hermits have a staff each and a, let's say the giant has an axe each, right?
Right.
We'll scroll back up to our weapon damage section.
I'm scrolling up right now. I was like, crap, what is it?
Well, it's also hyperlinked, so just go to the top and click it.
That's very true.
So it's 1d12 for an axe, so it would be 2d12 for the hit, plus don't forget the brute strength bonus. That's an extra +1 each on the damage for being a giant. So it's 2d12 plus 2 if they're at level, I think they start at level 1, so +1 each as well as that. And then for your staff, it'd be 2d6s plus 2, 1 for each of the levels of the character. Add all that stuff up, and then just apply that to whichever enemy you want to apply it to. That's how it works. And if that damage kills that enemy, say they have 10 left and you roll a total of 20 damage, that extra 10 applies to whichever enemy you want to apply it to next, and so on and so forth until the damage is done. And that's a round of combat. And then you just roll another d6 and do another round of combat.
Yeah, and for those following along, I rolled 2d12s and 2d6s, and I rolled 31.
31 flat is your rolls?
31 flat. And so then you add the giant's bonus for +1 damage to the party.
So it's four for the giant, so you're at 35. Yes. And then another 2 for the hermit, so you're 37 points of damage in one round of combat with 2 giants and 2 hermits. Get it? So when we go over monsters, we'll see how many. A lot of that. Yeah, how many skeletons you could kill with 37 points of damage. So we'll see. Oh, and everything I just announced, it's here. So let me actually keep reading. So in Max's words, after a successful attack roll the whole party's damage and apply the multipliers to the roll. For example, a level 2 party of 2 giants wielding spiked flails, a little bit different, rolls 1d10, so the total is 2d10. If the damage roll is a 10, +1 for the giant's brute force ability, and +2 for the giant's level. It's everything I just said. It's a bunch of damage. You got 36 this time. The equation is written out. Total damage equals, in parentheses, party damage roll plus party level per member plus other bonuses times, parentheses, any modifiers. Don't forget your PEMDAS, kids. So yeah, so that is how a roll, that is how a round of combat goes and the damage is assigned. So the same thing applies to party members. So if you roll for the enemy to hit, all of the enemies would roll all of their damage, and then I believe we'll get to it later, but yeah, targeting party members, we'll talk about that in a second, but it gets applied to one party member, which is crazy. You can just insta-kill a party member.
Yeah.
So this next part is something we talked about before, unarmed strike, which is, I guarantee this is, I mean, I don't guarantee. I'd be surprised if this was in the original, but then someone was like, hey, I actually lost my sword. What do I do? And now there's a whole rule for unarmed strikes. In the rare circumstance you find yourself with unarmed party members that need to make an unarmed attack, the base is 0 damage, so no dice are rolled, but with some of your attacks with evasion and things like that, even if you do 0 damage, you're still taking a turn. An unarmed attack may prevent an enemy from getting a successful attack to provide an opportunity to activate the hermit's healing ability, and modifiers and bonuses still apply to unarmed strikes. For example, a giant level 1 party would deal 2 damage on a normal unarmed strike and 4 damage on a palpable hit with an unarmed strike, because even though you don't roll a damage dice, all of the extra modifiers still work, and anything that a successful attack triggers still works as well. So basically it's exactly the same, there's just no damage dice roll. And then targeting party members. So we talked about what happens to the enemies, but for party members specifically, monsters always attack a single party member unless the member dies during the attack. To determine which party member takes, yeah, right? So if you're fighting something that can do 30 points of damage, you're dead. I mean, it's literally just pick one. I mean, there's armor and stuff. So to determine which party member takes damage, assign a number to each member of the party and roll a d4, or the most appropriate die if the party is larger. Do this once and record it, adjusting when a party member dies. Death occurs when the party members hit 0 or fewer. You're just dead. There's no death saving throws. There's no nothing. If you hit 0, you toast. If the targeted member dies during the attack, the remaining damage spills over to the next one down the line. So you actually create a chain with this. If the next party member is the rogue, their self-preservation weakness will trigger another roll. So the enemies can actually target someone else. When the party size is more or fewer than 4, choose the appropriate die and repeat the assignment order. They have a thing listed here where if you're down to 3, just roll a d6 and do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So on a 1 or a 4, it's a 1. But so basically, to explain the chain a little bit, you assign all of that at the beginning. You roll what kind of the progression is and write that down. So if you go Hermit Giant, you know, and your last giant, or your when you roll like the 3 to target, it starts on Giant and then rolls to the Hermit at 4 and then goes back to the Giant at 1 or whatever, and will go around. If you die, instead of having to roll for the carryover damage, you just created a turn chain, which is interesting.
It makes sense. That's a very like sensible way to do that, you know?
Yeah, to actually just have the chain to start as opposed to having to roll it constantly.
Absolutely.
Evasion is a huge part of combat. So you can actually evade combat. There is no reward for clearing the dungeon or clearing the forest. Weighing the consequences of combat may lead to choosing a safer path. There is no shame in fleeing an unnecessary unwanted encounter. To attempt to evade, you identify an exit, roll the d4, and use the following table, which, if we look at the weakness of your 2 giants, will have an impact on this. They're slow. So 4 results, if you roll a 1, so again, you say, that's the door, I have an exit, I want to evade, I'm bouncing. If you roll a 1, the enemy hits you and you do not evade. If you roll a 2, the enemy follows you to the next room or hex. But caveat to that, if an enemy follows the party into a new room, you do roll for a new encounter in that room before engaging in combat again or attempting another evasion. Because you're still in a new room, and if the thing follows you, now you just have 2 bad guys you're fighting. Enemies will not follow the party members out of dungeons or into the start hex, but otherwise they will chase you around hexes and through the dungeon if you roll a 2. Number 3, party evades all enemies and traps but does not retrieve any loot, and if you roll that sweet 4, the party retrieves all loot, evades enemies and traps.
Except giants.
Except giants, which we will get to later. But again, the weakness for giants was while evading, you cannot successfully retrieve loot or achieve any other result requiring a 4 on an evasion roll. An evasion roll of 4 has the same effect as a 3. So if you have a giant in your party, you can never evade and get loot. You can just successfully run, and that's it. I think I scrolled way too far.
You did.
And then
watching this stream. I'm like, where are you going, buddy?
Death, dying, and continuity. You are likely to assemble many parties throughout the adventure, and they're gonna die. You're gonna fail. The odds of you actually
gonna die.
Yeah, you're gonna hit a bunch of different adventuring parties with different names and everything like that. And I really, really enjoyed this part of the adventure too. In the very likely scenario they die, record the following: the location, and make a note of which party died here. It says, I number mine. The total years passed, adding 1 year each time a full party dies. So every time your party dies, you add a year for the start of your next party, because it's not a new 12 years for every party you have.
No, it's 12 years.
You start over at the time the last party died. And then the last part is any remaining enemies, gold, or loot is left behind. So you can actually mark on the map where the party died and what they had. And when if the next party gets to that hex, they can loot the dead bodies of the previous adventuring party.
This is just such a good little game. You know,
it's so good. It's so good.
I have a Valentine's Day date with my girlfriend tone, and I promise you, the moment she goes to sleep, I'm going to set up my hex grid on my computer, and I'm going to play this by myself while she's asleep.
There you go. You or someone else in a multiplayer game may direct another party to visit this location to discover the loot left behind. If you're lucky enough to be killed by a trap, the trap is considered disabled. If you're in the middle of fighting some loathsome monster or creature, know that it remains gloating over its victory. A party member is dead when reduced to 0 hit points. A party member may not be healed when reduced to 0. However, they can be resurrected and fully healed with the rejuvenate magic power, which I believe is super cool. And then I think it's going to talk about it later, but also when we get to the delve, But if you're fighting a monster, a bad boy, it doesn't heal, but it stays there. So if you create an encounter where there is a skeleton in a room, the skeleton's there, and if a future party interacts with that, they fight the skeleton that potentially killed you.
Skeleton in the room.
Yeah, yeah. Do you want to hit exploring? Hexploring?
Hexploring. Hexploring refers to the party's overland travel and wanderings. Basically, hexploring refers to like moving through this hex grid world, this overland map. In some cases, maybe quite direct, making haste towards a clear objective. Other times, the party may meander, scouring the land for signs of a dungeon entrance. While exploring, the party is sure to meet all sorts of strange creatures and travelers. Exploring is where the Fae folk find themselves most useful, as the ancient lore they bring with them often serves as a warning to avoid becoming lost and entrance in the Fae, or entranced in the Fae. So getting lost in the Fae is a big thing here, and it's going to be your biggest time sink. So the moment you have a Fae folk, you're like, okay, cool, that's good. When exploring, complete the following steps each time you enter a new hexagon. And I don't have we showed like the blank hex map they provide, because it's at the end of the book. I don't think we've showed yet. But if you look, I think Ryan will scroll here in a second. There's a provided blank hex that you can make a copy of and print, or you can fill out the book if you're a fucking monster.
And if you look at the hex map, because one of my questions early on before I flipped to this hex page is, how do you know where you're going? At the bottom of the hex, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it's 6 or 5 across, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 up and down, or 10. The bottom middle one is start, and the top middle one is castle, and castle is where the Lich King is. So you have to hexplore the entire way across this specific hex map to get to where you're supposed to be going.
And I love that like everything about this is random except the start and the finish. It's like it's as far fucking away as it possibly could be.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Okay, so when exploring, complete the following steps each time you enter a new hexagon. So you will roll 1d6 on the hex terrain table, record the results on your hexploring sheet. So this will tell you what kind of hex you enter, essentially. If relevant, roll on the hexploring encounter, recording any permanent encounters. If relevant, I love all these if relevants, because it's like, yeah, some of the shit you might not do in this one. If relevant, roll on the exploring creature table. When exploring, bring the party back, when hexploring brings the party back to a familiar area, roll 1d6 on the encounter instead of 1d12, and we'll get there in a second. So let's go over hexploring terrain. So we have 6 different options, obviously rolling a d6, for what the terrain is. And the table is just divided up between the result roll, the type, and the description. So number 1 is a large lake. You cannot enter this hex permanently. Return your last hex. Little star there. And we'll go down to the star, actually. I did it earlier, but we'll go down to the star at the end of this. 2 is quiet forest. This is a super ideal one. No encounter on first turn. It functions as a normal forest upon return, so you'll have to roll on the encounter after that. But if you roll 2, it's just a quiet forest, a little reprieve from how terrible some of this is going to be for your party. 3 is a clearing. Always pass freely without rolling encounters. And that's cool. I could definitely see that one as like it's a clearing and your party sees something far off, but it's like, so they're able to stay low and like move across it, or something like that. 4 is marsh. Roll on the exploring encounter table. 5 is hills, roll on the exploring encounter table. 6 is forest, roll on the exploring encounter table. So basically 4, 5, and 6, you're going to have an encounter.
Yeah. I think Max
you'll have an encounter upon returning. But
I think Max consistently, when it's only the 1d6, which is not like a bell curve roll, it's just a random roll,
right,
does basically 1, 2, 3 is as good as you're going to hope for, and 4, 5, 6 is just what level of fuck you are.
It's essentially 50-50. But not quite. And then the star that we talked about for the lake one, because this is a scenario that when they said that, I was like, what happens if? And then it was instantly answered. If one or more hexes become sequestered by lakes. So if you're on a hex and you keep rolling lakes all around you to where you are stuck on a single hex and everything around you is fucking lakes, which like is statistically unlikely, but is possible. Then a skull-masked bard carrying a drum will offer the fairy a party from any neighboring hex across the river, but they must roll for becoming lost in the Fae for 1d8 years. His dark leather armor appears charred, and he chants the poem at the beginning of the book to a slow, droning beat. Fucking so cool. Like, it doesn't suck, but it's so statistically unlikely that you will come across this. But if you do, you have this weird, unique encounter with this weird Fae. And he says the poem from the beginning of the book, and I love that. I love the shit out of that. So good. Yeah. And then we have this hex art right here, and I really like this. This book is incredibly sparse when it comes to art. And that's fine because of what this book is. But I think this right here is a great example of a good hex art piece, you know?
Yeah, it's like what?
No, go for it.
No, it's beautiful. As a whole, as what amounts to basically a whole page illustration outside of 4 lines at the top. The fact that it's like a scene, and for those that aren't seeing this right now, it's a hill with kind of a stream running out of this open, I don't want to say doorway, just opening.
No, it's like a boarded up mine shaft or something.
It's like a boarded up mine opening. Yeah. With this water running through it, with trees growing up beside it, with this kind of like marshy. So it kind of feels like almost all of the Hexpression terrains kind of rolled into one. It's like a hill, but there's also like this water, but it's also kind of marshy. There's also forest trees. It's kind of a little bit of all of the terrain all rolled into one and then put in the hex shape. But I love that the trees break out of it. So it's almost like a hex window looking into a space instead. Really, really cool done. I know Max did a lot of the art in this, but I think Andy Weber did some of the other ones. I don't know who did this one. I think in a lot of the Max ones. Never mind.
Shout out whoever did this one. I like this one.
It's got to be Andy Weber. I think in the left here. I don't know how I spotted that, but right here it looks like an AW. So this must be Andy Weber because Max Moon writes Max Moon on his.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good eyes, man.
Boop, boop. Right,
the glasses are really the glasses really working today. Okay, so exploring encounters. Our next little. I think we're on page 15 now. If you're following along in the book at home, exploring encounters. This is another fantastic. This is a D12 table. So it's result, encounter, effect, and duration. So I'm going to go through them and fairly quick. 1, thick mist, lost in the Fae for 1d4 years, and the duration's passing. So you're going to lose maybe 4 years on this one. Unless you have a faithful. 2, creature. Roll once on the Hexploring creature table. So you fire a creature. Cool. Thick mist. 3, none. You thought you saw a glimmer of something, heard a noise, and had a premonition, but it was nothing after all. 4, creature. Roll on the Hexploring creature table. 5, friend. Roll on the friends table, which is a fantastic table that we'll get to. 6, traveling tinker. Will buy, sell mundane loot, offer to exchange one loot item for safely escorting them to the next hex. Will not sell a crown. Level advancement available, which we'll also get to, but that you can advance your level through this person. Continuing for new hexes only. Oh yeah, because 1d6 you roll for if you have been there before and you're revisiting. Now everything below this is only for new hexes. Lost Noble offers you 100 gold to safely escort them back to the nearest village. Level advancement available. Stone Portal, which is the item that you'll use for like the magic key, and you can use it to teleport up to 6 hex spaces. Which is interesting. You can just jump 6 hexes, but then if you have to come back, you have to re-explore all those areas. Fae Circle heals a party fully each visit, so not just once. Each time you revisit it, it'll be there and you can heal. 10, which is 10 is the ideal, right? Dungeon entrance plus creature. Roll on the dungeon entrance table on the Hexploring creature table. Entrance is guarded and not accessible unless the creature is killed or evaded. 11 is the same as 10. And then 12, which is super, super ideal, is just a dungeon's entrance, no guard, no creature. You get into a dungeon. So here's the little asterisk from the Traveling Tinker. I believe Lost Noble. Traveling Tinker and Lost Noble share local gossip and stories of ages past, including level advancement at 100 GP or 100 G per level. GP, I'm used to other things. If the party accepts an offer to escort either the Tinker or Noble, the Tinker Noble effectively joins the party and is always unarmed. They each have 1 hit point, so they fucking squishy. If either perishes along the way, it is discovered that the traveling Tinker's bag or lost Noble's purse are empty, and there is no loot to be recovered. During combat, the Noble and Tinker are both included in the roll, determining which party member takes damage. So if you escort them, they're part of your party. They can effectively take damage, and if they die, you get nothing. There's nothing on them if they die, which is just the biggest middle finger. Another cool, like mostly full-page piece of art here. It is is a stone portal, right? So it's a stone doorway with this like black and white, like old school, like hypnotist graphic in between, which is funny because it kind of stands out as very, very, very out of the rest of the frame, which I like. Yeah, you know,
it's great, and it's with this like scroll work on the side and stuff like that. The art in this is very cool. It's very simple, but it also strikes me very, very like old school D&D art.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. So and I'm really enjoying that. I'm loving this. Like this is like a not maybe not an old school like clone, but feels like it. You know what I mean?
Well, it gives you the same kind of vibe, and I know that we've kind of touched on it a little bit, and I know different people have different opinions on what like OSR is. And I'm under the opinion of the Principia Apocrypha, like Ben Milton and all the rest of those, where OSR is more of a vibe and a style than it is anything else. But there's also people that believe that OSR is straight up just retro clones. Like if it's not like fucking Lich Lord or OSC or something like that, it's not really OSR. Again,
I think that takes away from like what the actual experience of OSR is supposed to be.
Exactly.
I think if it needs to be like, listen, there's also people who think the world is flat and vaccines don't work, and I don't listen to those people either. So
exactly.
Listen, so, if you're listening to this and you're an OSR purist, I'm not at all equating you to an anti-vaxxer or a flat earther. That was mostly a joke, but also your opinions are kind of ridiculous.
I'm right there with them. We share a like mind on that. To each their own opinion. If you were also there for the origin of the OSR, and that is what it was originally, the retro clone, and that's your opinion, go for it.
Sure.
I personally subscribe to, as I said, the concept of ruling's not rules, that combat is not balanced to make you feel good about yourself. And that kind of like the world exists and you're moving through it as opposed to the world is being written for you. And it's a lot more narrative. Like it's low prep and it's more like adventure seeds you toss at the party versus planning out an entire like A, B, C, D adventure that you work your way through. Basically the opposite of current trad games. And that is more of the OSR. As I said, there's a document called the Principia Apocrypha that a lot of people kind of wrote their opinions on, like how to do more old school.
Is that
like
what you sent me that I read through before we played?
Yeah.
That was a really good read. It's a fantastic document.
It's just how to both run and be a player in that style of game that I just described. Rules light, inherently unbalanced, inherently deadly and difficult for you, with an emphasis on creative problem solving versus like murdering everything till you become a god.
Instead of being a whole party of murder hobos. Cool. So moving on to exploring creatures. So this is where if we come into a creature encounter, we would roll on this table. And some of these are vastly different than other ones. Number one,
real quick before we start exploring creatures, let's take a quick BRB and then we'll get back into the exploring. So we'll be back in just a moment. And we're back with the Weekly Scroll Podcast going over 12 years.
Okay, Hexploring Creatures. So this is the table you'll roll on if you roll to encounter a creature when you're Hexploring. And yeah, some of these are like a lot better than some other ones. Some of them are terrible. It is results, creature, damage, and then special. So number one is so ideal. It's a deer, you know? Always evades, always escapes. This is a deer. It's just gonna run away, you know. Sentient vines. I assume this means 20 of them. What do you think that means?
No,
Ryan?
so that's what I thought. Okay. That's what I thought originally, and I kept reading through the whole thing. It is an unlabeled spot. It has to be the HP.
Oh, okay, cool. So the unlabeled spot we're assuming is HP, and I think that makes a lot of sense. So we've got the second rule is sentient vines. They have 20 HP. They do 1d4 damage, and they cannot be evaded. You're not evading the vines. The vines have you. Gotta wait for good old Treebeard to come, or I guess Tom Bombadil to come save you. Doesn't matter. 3, treachery of ravens. Yeah, okay, cool. 4 HP does 1d4 damage. Roll 1d12 to determine how many are encountered. Yeah, so you might there might be a whole, there might be 12 of these bitches coming after you. 4 is Poisonous Toad. 4 HP, 1d12 damage. If party member is dealt damage, lose 1 HP per hex or room moved. So very interesting, because we talk about there's like the macro level of play and the micro level of play, which is dungeon delving. You're going to lose HP either way. 5, Gargantuan Beetle. 24 HP, 1d12 damage, deals +4 damage. So it deals 1d12 +4 damage, which is a fucking lot of damage. That is not a small amount of damage. 6 is a Hill Giant, 36 HP, 1d12, deals +1 damage, will not attack or follow a party that includes a giant because, real recognizes real, y'all.
You're good on that. You got double giant action.
I got 2 giants. He's going to join us now. 7 is Pack of Wolves, 8 HP, 1d8, roll 1d6 to determine how many are encountered. That can go downhill really fast, especially the way I rolled some of these tables. Firefolk, 16, 1d6 will not attack or follow a party that includes a Fey folk because they are, somewhat Fey. If a party member is damaged, take 1d4 damage each time an attack or evasion is rolled. So they light you on fire. You take continuous fire damage essentially. 9, Hostile Elf, 18, 1d8 damage, takes +1 damage from metal because it's a Fey folk and they are, they don't like metal. Sets a 1d12 trap on any failed evasion roll. Will not attack or follow the party if it includes a Fey folk. 1d12 trap though, that can just take you out. 10 is a Banshee. Banshee has no HP. 1d6 damage, invulnerable and cannot be damaged. Time to run. 11 is potentially the best option here, which is roll twice. And I say best as worse because some of these fucking suck. But yeah. And then 12 is Satyr. 16, no damage. On any enemy hit, do not roll damage. The Satyr offers the party food and drink, putting them to sleep and becoming lost in the Fae for 1d6 years. So one more lost in the Fae circumstance. Amazing. Yeah. Do you want to roll real quick on this table, Ryan? Just because we're making good time.
Sure.
Roll me a d12.
Let's see, I have my dice roller bookmarked. 1d12. I got a 7.
It's Pack of Wolves. Roll a d6.
Yeah. 1.
Oh, you lucky motherfucker. So 1 wolf with 8 HP, which, if you're tracking, my party did 36 damage. It's in one turn. So it's like, we're fine with this wolf.
Murdered. Yeah, destroyed the wolf. Shredded it to little pieces.
So scrolling down, we have another of these fantastic. This is such a good piece of art too. It's like a gigantic crab monster.
It's probably the gargantuan beetle, number 5.
Oh yeah. Oh duh. Obviously yes. This is the gargantuan beetle, and it's got these 2 pincers, and it's got this little dude in its pincers, and the little dude's screaming because he's about to die, or she. Oh. They? And
this one is this is the Max Moon sign in the bottom left. Yep. I assumed it was a giant beetle, but also giant beetles with pincers, but it's also the Fae. So regardless, this gives you a sense of just, can you imagine just chilling, chopping down a tree, hanging out, your house in the background, and suddenly this creature that realistically kind of gives me those old school claymation, Jason and the Argonauts creatures. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It took me a second and I was like, oh fuck yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we were alive, but we've seen the clips.
No,
of
but
just
I've
like
seen clips.
Dude, when Clay, I'll tell you this right now.
As like a young child, you know.
Yeah, I'd rather take claymation monsters over some of the CGI stuff any day.
Oh, absolutely. I love claymation. I think it works out really well. Okay, tangent. We're moving. Moving on to page 19. Friends. This is a really, really unique and fantastic table, and I very much love it. And I had a really great time reading through it. So this is a D10 table. I mean, when you come across the option to roll for friends, this is where you roll. Number 1 is our best friend, the original, the dubious, Popplecrop Slink, a diminutive gnomeling with a sly sense of humor and twisted sense of truth. Popplecrop Slink weaves a wondrous tale of distraction, robbing the party of all their gold and their single most valuable item. Always evades an attack. The party grows stronger, may be inspired by the stories, and advances 1 level per 100 gold stolen, rounded down. So listen, Popplecrop might take your shit, but like you're so heartened by this story or the encounter that you get to advance a level as long as you had 100 gold on you.
I think this guy reminds me of like a slightly nicer. I don't know if you played Death's Gambit, but there's a character in Death's Gambit. If you first meet him,
because you told me to, and I've never played it.
So good. The first time you meet him, he's got garbage items that are way too expensive, and if you don't buy from him the first time you meet, spoiler alert for Death's Gambit.
Oh yeah, spoiler alert for the game that came out 4 years ago. If you haven't played it.
Well, they just re-released basically the entire game all over again. Anyway, regardless, the guy literally chases you, stealing your shit for the rest of the game. No matter how many times you kill him, he keeps popping back up and tries to attack you and steal your shit. And this reminds me of that guy, except this guy at least tells you a story. You know,
at least tells you a story, and also
unless you have an ancient magic crown, and then he just straight fucking murders you.
But that's only at the beginning of the game.
Right.
If you find the ancient magic crown, he does not do that. But if you generate it in character creation, he just Nomelin stabs you. Okay, 2, wandering merchant. A lanky, old, and wrinkled merchant has been using this place to store their goods. They will buy and sell any mundane items for prices as listed. Cool. 3 is a wise woman. A cloaked woman has made this space her strange and dismal home. For 100 gold, she points out on your map where a crown can be found. Roll a dungeon entrance, place 6 hexes from your current hex. The first loot roll in this location results in automatic crown. That is fucking fantastic.
Automatic crown, baby.
That is amazing. That is great. That is ideal. 4, dying adventurer. A wounded swordman reservedly tells you of his failed attempt to slay an enemy in which he fell upon his sword. With his dying breath, he shares a secret location where loot may be found unguarded. The next encounter automatically results in loot, whether exploring or delving. Advance 1 level upon retrieving this loot. That's a really cool one. Yeah, he's like, there's loot ahead. I already cleared the way. I've been there. Yeah, I like that one a lot. 5, Thogwood Billiam. A half-crazed halfling scuttles towards you, seemingly shocked. He hurriedly encourages you to leave the place and points you towards safety. Skip the next encounter roll, or the next door roll is automatically an exit. So this guy's like, get the fuck out of here, bro. Here's the way to get out of here. Gerardus Zauber, a scaly skinned dwarf, emerges from the shadows, stroking his copper beard. He is looking for dragons and will join you for 1 battle, automatically defeating the next monster or creature you encounter. So this guy joins you, and he's such a fucking badass that the next encounter you come across, no matter what it is, he just kills him immediately.
Marks him.
Hey, I have a question. If you came across how would you rule this? If your party got this guy and the next roll was they came across the satyr, would you rule that this guy just fucking kills the satyr?
Oh,
I guess you're not your party, it's you, but I mean, you'll be ruling it. So
I don't know.
I would.
No. Well, I mean, because it's kind of it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, right? Because it's two things that no matter what happens, this one like automatically defeats it, but in the next one, a successful roll to hit means the satyr. I feel like you don't even need a roll. This guy just auto does it, and that's that's before the roll to hit the satyr to get the food. So it sounds like dinner to me. The real question is, would you eat a satyr? Is that cannibalism, or is it like waist up is cannibalism, waist down is just dinner?
You know, I think as long as it's cooked meat. Okay, 7, Renegade. No level advancement. Will join your party for 50 gold. Roll a new party member. So if you've lost a party member, this is a good way to make one back, or just to get an extra party member. You can have a 5-person party. 8, new party member, no level advancement, roll a party member. How is that different from 7? Oh, there's no 50 gold cost. So this is a free party member. This one costs you nothing.
Yeah.
9, Fimfam, a walking, talking, shimmering tree introduces you to a group of plant people, one of whom joins your party with the stats as a Fey folk. Amazing. 10, Ellis? It's not Ellis? I mean, that's not how Ellis is spelled, but yeah, sure. Ellis, a kind and fearsome elf, willing to train your party 1 level advancement in exchange for 50 gold or 1 bow. Very cool. A little asterisk here. All friends are willing to train your party to advance 1 level per 100 gold or 100 gold worth of loot, unless otherwise noted. So any of the people can do that. Go ahead.
No, what's up? I don't know what you say.
I was like, any of these people, they do that, even if they didn't specifically say that. The ones that specifically say, oh, it's 50 gold, or oh, they can't do this at all, are specific.
Right. So like anytime you get to roll for a friend, basically you can do party advancement. So when we get to party advancement later, it's interesting. I don't think you just get 100 gold. You can do party advancement. You have to be in a situation where advancement is presented to you, like a friend or something like that. So you can like what sucks is you could hoard your money to do level advancement and then meet someone like Poppledick or whatever and Popplecrop Slink and then steal all your money.
Yeah, but he levels you up for every 100 gold rounded down.
Well, that's true. So, I mean, that's just kind of like...
Wait, is it once or for every 100 gold rounded down?
Is it for every 100? Because then he's stealing your money.
1 level per 100 gold stolen.
So if you were gonna pay for levels anyway, he just kind of saved you. He saved you from having to ask.
He forced that decision on you.
Yeah. Great piece of art here from Max Moon 2 that shows a lot of different...
I think that's
friends.
Fim-Fam, you know?
Yeah, Fim-Fam on the left. You got the dying... What number is the dying soldier? The dying adventurer is on the ground on the right, literally with a sword stuck in him.
And that middle guy has to be our buddy Popplecrop, you know?
Do you think it's Popplecrop?
Who do you think it is?
Well, Popplecrop is a gnomeling. Diminutive gnomeling. This guy's as tall as a tree folk. I thought this was the renegade.
Oh, maybe. You know?
But it could be Popplecrop. It could totally be Popplecrop.
Popplecrop the
and then
renegade.
there's... Yeah. That's that fucking song. Every time I hear the word renegade now, it's just renegade.
Oh, God.
Renegade. Fucking TikTok. And in the back is a dungeon entrance, like with a stairway leading up. And on the wall is this cool piece of like skull art that I would totally rock in my house. So a cool piece there. And then we're talking about dungeon entrances.
Dungeon entrances. This is another D6 roll. Then with a description. 1, as the party peers into a pond, the reflection sharply grasps them, pulling them all into a cavern beneath. Must immediately enter the dungeon, and the party is lost in the fade for 1d6 years. Fucking cool. So your party's like finds a pond, they look into it, and the reflections fucking grab them and pull them into the entrance of the dungeon. That is fucking cool. And then if you don't have a Fey folk with you, you're gonna lose 1d6 years. It's funny because like feasibly your party's like aging during this, you know, like they like you can describe them as a little bit older at the time, you know, especially after the 1d12 years lost roll, I think.
Well, what's crazy too is that you only have 12 years. If you hit two 1d6s, you could you could pop out, right? So say you're at 8 years, and you get lost in the Fae for 4. No, let's say 5, right? You pop out of the Fae a year after the Lich King destroyed everything. You lost. You look around and it's all gone. You know? So
2. The earth beneath your feet gives way as the party falls into a sinkhole, discovering a small passageway in the revealed cavern. Each party member takes 1d4 damage. Party can climb out. Cool. 3. Ancient ruins surrounded by statues of ghoulish figures. 4. An enormous tree with a handcrafted door built into it. Fuck yeah, that's cool. It's very Nightmare Before Christmas. 5. A long abandoned well with a rope ladder hanging down it. 6. A boarded up cave appears, long ignored, with a barrier easily removed due to rot. I think that's what we saw in the art piece above, was the boarded up cave. Yeah.
The hex. Yeah. I love how all the art
really cool. Yeah, let's say it's really cool that like the art is examples of the fucking roll tables. And you know, we're reading through all these roll tables, and I know it sounds like really girthy if you're listening.
So girthy.
But like this is the whole game is just roll tables, and I'm into it, you know?
Yeah, it's all about that girth, you know? Random hot take we don't need a tangent in. Nightmare Before Christmas is overrated and terrible. Getting into delving.
Why don't you go ahead and read delving, since you're gonna sit here with your shit opinions, you know?
Delving is the art of exploring strange and mysterious dungeons. So, as we said in the beginning, this game is made of hexploration and delving. Hexes is overland travel, and delving is actually like grid-based combat or grid-based dungeon delving. So delving is the art of exploring strange and mysterious dungeons. Some may be ancient ruins sprawling across a single level, while others may consist of tiny enclosed spaces leading to stairs creeping lower and lower. So long story short, it is dungeon delving. When you enter a new room, roll the following sequence to generate the rooms and any encounters. You roll for size, you roll for type, you roll for the doors, you roll for the encounters, and then you roll for delving reward. And there's an asterisk here. I like all of the asterisks. Dungeons are filled with valuable trinkets, jewels, and gems. The party always finds at least 10 gold worth of treasure in each room. Yeah, so you get money every time you walk in. At least 10 gold. This must be retrieved in the same fashion as any other loot. So retracing your steps. Unlike hexploring, when delving, you will only roll dungeon encounters in new rooms. Evaded or victorious enemies, missed loot, traps, and corpses all remain where they were from the last encounter. And if an enemy follows you into a new room, you still roll for an encounter and potentially face an additional enemy. Enemies are always encountered before other encounters or loot. So like, I was going to say traps, but I think traps is a special thing. Room size. It's a D4. Room type is a D4. Room size is claustrophobic, small, medium, or large. Room type is a cavern, a corridor, rectilinear, or round. Rectilinear, I assume, means it's a long rectangle. Because rectangle
I'm
and linear.
Googling it because I'm a little dumb boy. Yes. It's essentially a corridor.
And then you roll for doors. So basically it's the number of doors in the room that you're in, which can really determine how you're going to fight. If it's a dead end, you're screwed. But if it's stairs down and doors and stuff like that, basically it's a D6. You can roll 1 and 2 are a dead end. 3 is 1 door. 4 is 2 doors down. 3 doors down. 5 is stairs down. And 6 is roll twice / exit. And there's an asterisk on a 6. Roll again. If it is another 6, then you have found a safe exit out of the dungeon back to the surface. Ooh, wait a minute. Is that the only way to get out of a dungeon? Is to roll D6 on a... Oh, backtrack. Right. So to get out the other side, basically, besides backtracking, you literally have to roll 2 D6s. Huh. I like that. I didn't notice that before. And then we get to delving encounters. It is a D12 table for the encounters. 1 and 2 are both traps. On a 1, it's 1d12 damage. Oh, it's the same. On 1 and 2, 1d12 damage to randomly rolled party member. 3 and 4 is nothing. 5 is 2 monsters. You roll twice on the dungeon monster table. 6 is 1 monster. You roll once on the dungeon monster table. 7 is 2 monsters plus loot. You roll twice on the table, and you generate a loot item. There's an asterisk. 8 is 1 monster plus loot. 9 is loot plus a trap. You generate 1 trapped loot item. 10 is monster and a friend. I would imagine going into a room and find a monster like attacking a friend, and you can like defeat the monster, and that's how you kind of make a friend. That's what it popped into my head as.
It's Popplecrop playing dice with a giant or something, you know?
Yeah. It's like, oh, yeah, look at this bad guy here. Get him. And then, like, scoops up all the giant's fucking gold when he turns around. Fucking Popplecroc. Number 11 is just straight up loot. And number 12 is a secret door. You add 1 additional door to the room. What was that?
Ooh, secret door.
Yeah.
Secret tunnel through the mountains.
Couple of asterisks here. Always roll loot before fighting or evading enemies, so you know what you are fighting for or leaving behind. And a loot item may be trapped with more than 1 trap. This could lead to rolling 2 or more d12 for trap damage. Double trap action.
2 traps.
You're like. But here's the thing: is if you have a rogue, all traps are disabled, so it doesn't matter. As far as I know, I think it disables traps everywhere. So if there's like 18,000 traps,
this is really interesting. You could like roll on this table, and you could make like a rectum linear hall that leads to 3 doors down. You know?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Right to Popplecrop. Flank. So there's another piece of art here, and it is a person. Looking like they're being sneaky around a corner while a monster makes its way down a corridor. But what they don't see is the shadow of another monster's arm on the wall beside him. So next we get the monsters. We talked about this before. We got 12 monsters, none of which would be fun to fight.
Oh my god, they're so fucking. It gets super brutal, and I love that. I so enjoyed that. I enjoyed that when we played Victory Basic. Like I like that about the old school like retro clones. It's just like they're just they're gonna punish you for existing.
Yeah. So a couple of things about this table too. HP and damage are not listed at the top of this table either. So those I would definitely have that, because this is another time. I don't think either of the monster tables have HP written, and then. Like, we know it's HP. But when I first read it, I also thought the same thing you thought, where I was like, is this how many there are? Maybe there's 10 skeletons?
Lays out for the groups where it's like, oh, yeah, you have to. So it's like, okay, well, then.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
So run through the bestiary. Skeletons have 10 HP, 1d4 damage. You create another skeleton on a palpable hit against the party. So if the skeleton does a palpable hit, another skeleton comes about.
Wow, that's a hugely dick move.
Yeah. Number 2 is a goblin, 12 HP, 1d4 damage. 1 additional goblin arrives each time an attack or evasion is rolled. Every time. Goblins just pouring out of places.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, there's an asterisk on this one too. It's cool. A new goblin appears before damage is dealt. Only 1 additional goblin appears regardless of how many goblins are already present. So it just stacks. It's a fucking Meeseeks is what it is.
Why Mr. Meeseeks?
But it arrives before damage is dealt. So if you overrun damage, basically like when you hit, boom, goblin pops up. But for the damage to, if you do, like you're 37, if you run into a goblin, another goblin pops up and then immediately gets murdered by you because you do enough damage to kill 2, because that's 24.
Right.
So the only real way to get the goblins to not keep popping up like rabbits is to basically murder them all in like one big cleave and whittle it down like that. Number 3 is Living Slime. It's 20 HP, 1d6 damage, and it cannot be evaded. A Shade is no HP listed, 1d8 damage, and it disappears when hit by party. The party loses a level on a palpable hit.
Oh, I love that. I love it so much.
Great. It's so good.
I miss level drain enemies, like in like, you know, like that was something we really lost in the modernization of games because people were like, oh well, like it's the power fantasy thing. It's like, well, I just want to be a powerful guy and just get more powerful. It's like it's kind of like it sucks, but it is fun to like be like in your level 8 party adventurers in 3.5 and then take a hit and be like, no, you're a level fucking 7 adventurer now, or you get down to 5 or whatever.
Dude, I love it. I hate the power fantasy stuff. I've always, like, ever since I started playing, I always hated the, like, min-maxing is always just driving me nuts. I'm like, why would you do that? That's not fun. And there's actually in TPK Zine, which is something I got from Exalted Funeral, there is an article written by Stu Horvath, who does the Vintage RPG Instagram page and podcast. And he talks about how in earlier editions of D&D at low levels, D&D was a horror game. Because you are basically a squishy, weak...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And that's what I like about OSR and games like this, is that it goes back to that feeling of, like, I am frail. And, like, I'm going for gold, and I could run into a fucking demon and literally get set on fire and die. I like that potential for death versus, like... I would love to see someone do, like, a PhD or a master's thesis on basically, like, societal changes and why... you know, the current generation of like of trad games and stuff likes as power fantasy. I'm a hero god versus the older editions where it was like, I like feeling this kind of like overwhelming, like could die anytime.
Yeah.
You know, sense of dread in my games that makes it interesting versus like knowing everything is balanced for me and that I'm going to win. It kind of feels like, I don't want to start a debate about it. Do it in the comments, friends. It kind of caters to the whole, like, trophy for everyone mentality that I'm not a huge fan of. Like, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, 5 is Ogre, 36 HP, 1d10 damage, deals an additional +2 damage. 6 is Two-Headed Troll. Love that, like an Etten. Kind of, but it's a troll. 40 damage, 1d12, or 40 HP, 1d12 damage, can only be killed by a palpable hit. I assume...
Brutal!
Right? I assume you could get it down to basically 1, but then until you get a palpable hit, which is a D6 roll after that, it's just going to stay up. This one is especially brutal. I really like this one. This is probably it's in my top 3 of these 12. Cyclops, 48 HP, 1d12 damage. If attacked, all surviving party members die within 1 year.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah. Big fan. Love that one. Love
so
that
if you get
one.
lost in the Fae after fighting this for 1 year,
you dead. You don't come back.
You start a new party.
Yeah. You just wander off into fucking purgatory like a fucking
Fuck, bro, that fucking hits.
Yeah, it's like Valhalla Rising. You just disappear into the mist. Stone Golem, 60 HP, 1d12 damage, easily evaded. The party only fails evasion and looting on a 1. I wonder how the giant would fit into that. Oh, well, I guess it says it gets it except the 1, and it's just that you can't get the benefits of a 4, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
Zombie is one of my favorite ones, too. Love this. 10 HP, 1d4 damage, but any party member dealt damage turns into a zombie in the next hex move. So if everyone takes damage from a bunch of zombies,
you're all...
they just walking dead out into the forest of a hex, and your loot walks away with it. So I would definitely have 4 zombies in that hex next time a party comes through, just decked out in loot. That's awesome. 10 is roll twice. That sucks. 11, roll again, and you get ×3, so results in 3 of a single monster type. So if you roll again ×3 and get a 9, you got 3 zombies you're fighting now.
Well, if you roll again and roll a 12.
Yeah. Oh, because number 12 is a demon. 72 HP.
72.
Which is still crazy, though, because how many damage did you do with a level 1 party of 2 giants and 2 hermits?
36.
Yeah, 36, 37, something like that. So that's one. So you half kill a demon in one round, but
I had 2 giants though, and we assumed they had the strongest weapon.
Right. 3d6 damage on a palpable hit against the party. All are set aflame and die. So if the demon rolls a d6 on the party, you all are immolated instantly, which is amazing. And I would have all the loot disappeared too. Just char marks on the ground. Double asterisk down here for the shade for the palpable hit for losing a level. The party is physically and mentally weakened by this attack, which may cause the party to have a negative level, resulting in negative modifiers to hit points and damage. So you could go below. You could literally finish out the rest of your shit negative, which is fantastic.
Yep.
Traps. Traps always deal 1d12 damage unless evaded by a rogue. Any trap not triggered remains until disabled by a rogue or triggered. On occasion, loot is trapped. Trapped loot may be retrieved by triggering the trap, disabling the trap, or evading the trap. Traps may be evaded as any other enemy, while the effect of a trap may follow a fleeing party. The trap itself does not. And a party that rolls a 2 on an evasion triggers the trap. The effect may be considered mobile, such as a projectile, creeping gas, or blast effect, and so the effect is still able to follow the party on the corner. Trap loot is always encountered after enemies. This is what we talked about before. There's an order of play in the back that I really like. That makes a lot more sense. But trap loot always is encountered after the enemy. So you defeat the enemy, and then you go for the loot, unless you're trying to evade and go for the loot. If a trap loot item is guarded by an enemy or another trap, then it may require 2 successful evasion rolls to get past all enemies and traps to retrieve the loot unharmed. If the first evasion is successful, the loot is retrieved and the party exits the room. However, if the second is not successful, then the trap is triggered. That's some weird wording there, because how I read that is, if the first one is evaded, then I read that as you wouldn't get the second one. I think if it was reworded a little bit to be, obviously it takes 2 rolls, you might, like, I don't know how you'd reword that, but I understand what it's trying to say. Is like you have to get out of the past the monster and the trap to get the loot and to get out. On the rare occasion that a loot item is both trapped and broken, the trap is considered disabled and the item remains intact. So trapped and broken means the trap is broken. Right. Which is, I mean, best case scenario, realistically. And the next part basically says in a multiplayer game, 1 rogue disables trap for everybody. So if you're playing with 3 different people, 3 different party members, where you literally have like 12 people running around in the room, 1 rogue unlocks it for everybody. It's not like individual or anything like that. And I love the piece of art here. It is this kind of like long piece.
It's this trap.
It's with a crossbow, the triggered and ready to go. And then there's ropes from the triggering device and pulleys around it to the back of door handles in front of it, and 2 arms reaching out to open the 2 doors, which would obviously trigger the trap when someone opens it and shoot the crossbow bolt right into their chest. Great piece of art. Great piece of art. Like I love this. I love this. Do you want to hit level advancement?
I'll hit level advancement. So level advancement. So much like everything else in this game, the party levels as a whole instead of individual. And I think we actually got this wrong earlier. Newly assembled parties start at 0, not at 1. Start at 0, so you have no bonus to your attack. So actually my party earlier did not get that bonus to their attack, so it was only 31 damage because they're all level 0. And as kind of we went over above, new friends you meet will offer like the ability to level up for gold. Gold is the ultimate reward for your experiences, and it is also gold that purchases the party's level progression. The party may advance as many levels as they have gold for at 100 GP per level, unless otherwise specified. Because there were a couple of those friends who are like, no, for 50 gold you can level up. You can also exchange loot of equivalent value if you do not have enough gold on you. Level advancement is not complicated. It consists of boons to hit points, damage, and health. When advancing to a new level, raise each member's maximum hit points by 1 and their damage dealt by 1. The party is considered fully healed each time they level up.
Super easy. Like you just heal and increase your health and damage by 1. Super fucking easy. Yep. And what's interesting too is there is no, as far as I can understand, there's no level cap. So, and you get 10 gold for every room to go into. So if you dungeon delve a bunch and get hundreds of gold, you can just be like, all right, buddy, train me. And then you just go from level 0 to level 5, and your HP and damage are just up by 5. I mean, here's the thing is it becomes kind of a battle of attrition at some point, where your damage output could potentially with an axe be like 1d12 plus 10.
Right.
But then the monster could literally be like a demon that immolates you in 1 turn. So it's,
or you could go be lost in the Fae for so long that it wouldn't matter. It doesn't matter. You could be level fucking 100. You know, but you go to sleep for 10 years.
The Lich King destroyed everything. Matter. So it's really interesting that, like, realistically, I mean, the HP obviously matters, and it's a pool across the entire party. So if you're at like 15 each with 4 party members, you got, I mean, that's still only 60 HP, you know? But it doesn't look like the monsters do a ton of damage. I think the biggest one was a demon at like a D8 or something. No, 3d6.
3d6.
So the demons don't do a lot of damage, or the creatures don't do a lot of individual damage, but the effects are potentially one and done, which is a really interesting way to do it. Like no matter how hard you hit, you could literally die on any dice roll.
Yeah, you're really good.
Yeah.
So passage of time. While the actions of the party may account for minutes, hours, days, the only notable passage of time is in the scale of years, which of course we've seen like a bunch of examples of before. I like it in the rules here. It lays out in text what we've seen a bunch before. So it's very obvious how it works. We are already understanding this, but this kind of just dials in a little bit. The wild world of the Fae is ever present and has a strange and terrifying effect on time. Stories tell of parents on a morning walk returning what seems to be mere hours later, yet their child has grown and had children of their own. Terrifying. There are 2 ways in which years pass. The party becomes lost in the Fae, or the party dies. Anytime a full party dies, requiring assembling a new party, 1 year passes and is recorded. So if you have a TPK with your party and you assemble a new one, automatically 1 year has passed. Yep. The game is lost if 12 years passes and no one has defeated the Lich King. In multiplayer games, it is possible that the time will pass differently for one party than another, even if they are at the same physical location. While one party may be curiously considering the march ahead, another party could be lost for years only to reappear again just before the first party turns around, never noticing its disappearance. This is a strange effect of the Fae, and the rational mind cannot comprehend or account for this discrepancy. So time moves differently for 2 different parties because the Fae doesn't make sense, and that's okay. The Fae is not supposed to make sense.
Right. So, but what's interesting that is if you're doing a multiplayer game, the only way that really works, and this is a question I have, is if one party gets lost in the Fae and you're working together, then the other party loses all that time too. You know what I mean?
Essentially. Yeah, I mean, if one party gets to 12 years, it doesn't really matter.
It's over. Right, yeah, but if you disappear for like 4 years and you're in the same spot, you come back to that same spot and they turn around and go, oh, hey. But for them, that has to pass 4 years too. And again, it says this doesn't make sense. Just go with it. I like that the weirdness of the Fae allows you to kind of just hand wave it and just be like, don't fucking worry about it. It's weird shit.
It's a not bad hand wave either. Because sometimes things are hand waved. I'm like, you're a dick for doing that. Just explain how things work. But this one's like, no, it's the Fae. The Fae are specifically nonsensical. You know?
Yeah.
Very
and
cool.
that makes it work.
I'm fine with that.
There's one thing I did notice is that Fae is spelled F-A-E a bunch of times through the book, but I think in the original poem it's F-E-Y. Yeah, it is. It's F-E-Y. So I think they're a little discrepant. I'm just pointing it out.
It's what are poem.
Where are we at? Oh, passage of time.
We're now at Sunken Castle of the South.
Sunken Castle of the South. Yeah. Once a party enters the Sunken Castle of the South, you will treat this as delving with a few exceptions. So if you didn't already, the Sunken Castle of the South is the Lich King's castle. It is the hex you're trying to get to that says castle. Do not roll on the dungeon encounters table, as all rooms contain 1d6 skeletons with the exception of the throne room. Upon discovering the 6th room, the party encounters a large throne room containing the Lich King. And when necessary, a dead end or exit is re-rolled to ensure the castle has at least 6 rooms. This should never be re-rolled if there's at least one unopened door in the castle.
Perfect.
So basically, no matter what, keep rolling until you have a possible 6 rooms, the final room you go into being the Lich King's room. And when you encounter the Lich King, this is the encounter, which is really, really
encountering the Lich King.
And you, with your party of double giants, will find this really interesting. The Lich King does not have hit points and does not deal damage. It is immune to all magic except magic crowns and any attacks, but any attacks by the Lich King that would deal damage to the party are treated as a single death touch, instantly killing one randomly rolled party member. Instant hand of death. Boom, you're done. So if he hits the party, if you have 4 adventurers left and he gets 4 successful hits, you lose. But there are 2 ways in which the party may safely crown the Lich King. 1, make a successful attack that would deal full damage or more. So I assume that means if you have a D10,
rolling a 10.
Right? Is that what it means? Like 1, but like everyone rolls the damage all at one time.
I think this might be a question for you to ask Max Moon, since you guys are on fucking messaging terms now.
Listen, you were messaging with Johan.
That's very true.
So that's a question that I have generally is what is full damage? Because again, individual party members don't. Oh, no. I think we're dumb.
I'm usually dumb, but yeah, go ahead.
I think
normal. They did like normal damage roll, like not half damage.
Yeah, I think. Are we? Where is combat? Let me find combat.
Keep going down.
Right there.
That was.
So it's got to be normal damage or double damage, right? Like maybe. A 5 or a 6 party hits.
Well, it says full damage. Not
right. So not normal or double. Yeah. So maybe it's got to be double damage, and you roll at least what your.
This might be one of those occasions he was talking about where he wanted to reprint just to clear up some of the language, because the language here is a little confusing.
I would ask that, but how I would rule this now is if you have 2d12s and 2d6s, that's a total of 36 points potential for if you roll max on everything. I would say that you have to roll all your damage and get at least 36 points, which it would be all of your damage if you max it out. So if you roll a 5 with enough if you roll a 5 and roll all your damage with enough modifiers that you would hit 36, I think that would work. Or if you do the double damage and roll enough that you go over. So it sounds like pretty much a 5 or a 6 to me, unless they just made roll normal damage. But that would mean... I'm interested to
see what the ruling on that is, what his intent was with that.
Or you roll a 4 on an evasion roll. The 2 ways to beat the Lich King, aside from the Ancient Crown and stuff like that. If you have that and Popple didn't kill you already, but yeah, funny giant man with 2 giants in your party. It should be noted that a party including a giant would not be successful due to the giant's weakness. When making a successful attack or rolling a 4 on an evasion, the party avoids the attacks of the Lich King while daringly crowning him and completing the coronation ritual. So, long story short, if you roll a 4 in an invasion roll and you don't have a giant in the party, basically you do some fancy maneuvering, you get the crown on his head, game over. Yeah, absolutely. But if you have a giant in your party, it doesn't work, and the only option you have is to make the successful attack roll that deals full damage. So since you have a giant in your party, you have one way to defeat him, and that is to do an attack that deals full damage. That's all you got.
Okay.
You complete the coronation ritual. He crumbles to the floor to rest for another 12 years unless you found a way to put him to rest permanently, which we talked about. If you actually find the ancient crown, the original one, he's dead forever. All skeletons remain in the castle are instantly destroyed and no new skeletons are generated. I do enjoy this role-playing section, and this is that piece of art that is the image of the Lich King that's embossed on the front.
That's embossed on the front of the other one, yeah.
Yeah. I really, really like this role-playing section. I'm not going to read it all, but basically what it says is, role-playing is essential to all RPGs, or narrative is essential to all RPGs, and that Max has found that it's hard to kind of create a narrative in a solo game, especially when a lot of it is rolling. So what they say is, I highly recommend writing it down. When a party dies, I like to honor the dead by stopping and writing the story from their perspective before rolling up a new party. They use the maps. That's cool. They use everything. And I like that it even says, like, this story becomes the story that they tell at inns and taverns. And you could even keep the bad stuff out that makes you look like an idiot and make it better, and then people talk about it. I like the difficulty variants too. Basically, there's monster level up options. If you're looking to increase the difficulty, don't mind extra bookkeeping, you can do monster level advancement. More powerful monsters roam the lower levels of dungeons. Each time you descend a level, add an HP and damage to every monster on that level. So if you keep rolling stairs, basically, the deeper you go, the harder things get, which I love.
I do really like that too.
Yeah. And then the castle difficulty is really interesting too. So this basically just changes the sunken castle. There's sword mode, flail mode, and axe mode. So instead of D6 and 6 rooms for the skeletons in the castle, sword mode is 1d8 skeletons, and the Lich King's in the 8th room. Flail mode is 1d10 skeletons. Lich King's in the 10th room. And axe mode is 1d12 skeletons. Lich King's in the 12th room. And has a monster level up variant. And it does say during playtesting, no one crowned the Lich King in axe mode.
Wow.
That means we got to play a couple times and crown the Lich King in axe mode, is all I'm saying. Yeah. Do you want to hit the multiplayer variants?
Yeah, multiplayer variants. Games of 2 or more players offer the opportunity for cooperative, competitive, and parallel play. These are not distinct modes of play, and parties may weave in and out of each. Parallel play. In parallel play, each party navigates the same world, may interact with some of the same enemies and encounters. This type of play may be synchronous or asynchronous. I really like that. Players may buy, sell, trade, and loot among each other. Cooperative play. During cooperative play, multiplayer parties work together and may attempt to stick together as they explore and fight. However, they remain 2 distinct parties and will use different roles when engaging in cooperative combat. Evasion remains the same. When players encounter an enemy, all parties must choose whether to evade or attack. Evading parties roll standard, and the cat is walking from my screen. Hey, buddy, you know what? I need you to go away. Big stretch. Where was I? When players encounter an enemy, all parties must choose whether to evade or attack. Evading parties roll standard individual evasions rolls using the same results as solo play. In both PvP and cooperative combat, players will each roll 1d6 and use the difference between the rolls to determine the results. So you roll 1d6 and you use the difference between the rolls to determine the results. That's interesting.
Yeah, I love that. I can't wait to get to that.
Yeah. Cooperative combat is very similar to solo combat. However, all players roll 1d6 to attack. Regardless of the number of players, use the difference between the lowest roll and the highest roll to determine the results. If there are 3 or more players, then there could be a tie for the highest or lowest. In this case, the result may apply to multiple players. Use the difference between the lowest and highest rolls to determine the results on the collaborative combat table, which we're about to get to. So basically, this really takes the ability to critically fail or critically hit, palpable hits, away. Because if it's always the difference, then, if it's the difference between it could be.
So we talked about this a little bit. So it's actually a mechanic that I'm using. I know I talked about this because I'm adding a mechanic where you roll 2d6, subtract the highest from the lowest.
Right.
And it creates something. This is that same concept where if you have 2 parties, we each roll, And then say you roll a 3 and I roll a 5, it's a 2. But 2, I rolled highest and you rolled lowest. So we would look at 2, and it says high roll enemy deals damage, and then an enemy takes the damage of the low roll, and the effect is high deals half damage to enemy, and enemy deals full damage to low roll. So basically, we each roll damage, but since I rolled a 5, I deal half damage to the enemy, and since you rolled a 3, you get full damage from the enemy.
And notice that it's a 0 to 5 table because it's impossible to get a 6 if we're minusing the highest from the lowest.
So I actually sent you a thing before, the 2d6 document from Adam Vass.
Right.
And this concept is in there, and a little bit different. This uses the difference versus the subtraction. So Adam Vass lists 1 through 5, but you can figure out how to do 0 through 5 and the actual look at the statistics. And I actually, as part of my game, did the statistics of all of that extra. So 0 to 5 is statistically, like, from 0 to 5, easier to harder. You have a 29% chance of rolling a 0, which means doubles. You have to roll doubles. So statistically, you have roughly a 30% chance to roll doubles and get a 0. So 1 in 3 shot of what looks like both high and low hit the enemy for palpable hits. Both parties deal full damage. Statistically, 1 in 3 chance you're going to get that. It's crazy how fast it drops. So a 1, which is the next, obviously, like, it would be like a 5 and a 4, get you a 1.
Right.
But also, so would a 3 and a 2. You know, so there's a bunch of different options for that.
Yeah, it's a slightly more complicated, but not necessarily like complicated way of rolling.
I love it. And like I said, I added that mechanic in my game. And then when I saw it again in 12 years, I was like, I love this. It's a slightly different way to do that. But basically, a 0 is a 29% chance. A 1 is a 24% chance. A 2 is a 19% chance. A 3 is a 14% chance. A 4 is a 10% chance. And a 5 is a 5% chance. So you have what amounts to a 54% chance to get a 0 or a 1. And only a 5% chance to get a 5. So statistic odds, are way higher for hitting the 0 end. So cooperative combat against enemies is heavily favored to the players.
Yeah,
heavily
it really
favored
is.
to the players.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, that's that roll table, and we've kind of touched on a little bit of everything. So we'll move on to competitive play. In competitive play, parties may be racing to be the first to crown the Lich King, or they may just give in to their base desires and attack and rob the other party. Competitive play uses modified player versus player PvP combat and evasion rules. In the case of PvP combat, if one party wants to attack another, the attack is declared in advance. The attacked party may choose to evade or engage. If they wish to escape, they roll first on the PvP evasion results table. If the evasion attempt fails, or the attacked party chooses to engage, then each player, I don't know why I said this so weird, then each player will roll 1d6 opposing attacks. The higher roll wins. The difference between the rolls is used to determine the result on the PvP combat table. So once again, we're using the difference of dice. The word enemy refers to any party, creature, or monster the party is attempting to evade. So it'd just be the other party in this instance. So here we have the PvP. Go for it.
No, go for it. Yeah. No, there's just 2 more tables for that, but yeah.
Yeah, the evasion, PvP evasion results, 1 through 4. 1, all enemies hit, evasion attempts fails. 2, enemy follows the opposed party to the next hex or room, so it'll follow you. 3, party evades all enemies and traps, but does not retrieve any loot, double asterisk. 4, party evades all enemies and traps, receives encountered loot, and may choose to steal any one piece of loot or gold from a single enemy party. And that's kind of a big fuck you to that party. Is that we got away and we got your fucking, they might have an ancient magic crown on them, you know?
Yep. Yeah.
Attacking, so the first asterisk, attacking parties may choose not to pursue. So on that, follows them to the next hex or room. If they don't want to pursue, they won't. The double asterisk, attacking party may still enter the same hex or dungeon room as the evading party. However, the evading party is considered hidden and cannot be attacked again immediately. They're looking out for you. They know you're coming for them. They're hidden.
I love that one of the things that he talks about earlier is it's not, you don't pick a mode. You can go in and out of a bunch of different modes.
Yeah.
So you and I could be playing this game cooperatively
for
until we're like
of it.
real close to the sunken castle, and we find some sweet loot in a room, and I'm just like, fuck it, I attack you. And you're like, well, you immediately have to decide whether you evade or initiate attack with me, and it's just like out of the fucking blue. And we just get to fight it out. I love that. It's so cool.
I do too. I think that's really cool. And I like that having it in a set mode would be stupid. Having it like, oh no, here are like what we consider the modes of this play, but you can fluidly move from one to the other as the occasion calls or your mood calls, makes perfect sense. So the PvP combat table is another, like the other one. It's a difference between die. So there is no 6 and there is a 0. 0, each party deals full damage to the other, right? 1, defeated party deals half damage and successful party deals full damage. 2, defeated party deals half damage and successful party. So it's the same. 1 and 2 are the same. 3 and 4 are the same, which is successful party deals full damage. And 5 is palpable hit. Successful party deals double damage. Brutal.
Yeah,
brutal.
Yeah. I like I said, I love the 2d6 concept of subtract the lowest from the highest. I really enjoy it. It's statistically, I don't like when I don't like a d20 roll because statistically there's a 5% chance every time. It bothers me. I like bell curve rolls because I like the concept of like if you're good at something, you're more likely to hit within a certain range versus like the extremes. And I really like this difference thing with the weight that it has. It's not quite a bell curve, but it's statistically like trended down like highest to lowest. So I really like that a lot. Cool. Last page. Yeah.
Last page. Cool. So shared record keeping. So basically in multiplayer, delving and hexploring can be done synchronously or asynchronously. Which we kind of touched on earlier. Each party records their
just keep good notes so that we can pass it back and forth. Is basically all it says. Yeah.
It's you label dungeons, label hexes, take your notes. Any monster encountered are removed if killed. If evading, note the enemies because they stay there. They're permanent.
Yeah.
Monsters also do not heal, which I think we touched on earlier. And once again, it kind of touches back to that. It's possible for time to pass differently for each party. This does not impact the party's ability to interact with each other. Very cool. More than 2 players. Combat with 1 party is already considered chaotic. With 3 or more players, there could be 20 adventurers all attacking a large group of monsters in a claustrophobic-sized room. The chaos makes combat unpredictable and unavoidable. If any party attacks another party, a brawl begins. And then we have the rules for brawling. Brawling is a wild fight for your life, and there's no guarantee that you will be able to do damage to your intended victim. The more parties present, the less likely you will have to have any control over what happens. Once a brawl is initiated, use the PvP combat and invasion results with the following considerations. So the tables we just went over, except all parties present must choose to evade or engage in the attack, as there is no chance of sitting back and watching unharmed. There's 20 of y'all, fists are flying, swords are flying, you're all going to get hit. If 1 or more parties roll a 1 on an invasion roll, then all opposing parties deal full damage to all parties with a roll of 1. A lot of words, but also brutal. Any evasion roll of a 2 provides an opportunity for any party to follow any evading party with a roll of 2. Cool. All parties present who are not evading roll 1d6 to attack. If all parties agree to end the combat after damage is dealt, no further rolls are needed. So the complexity really takes a jump up if there's more than 2 people. And I don't really want to play this with more than 2 people,
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting about it in general is that you could have multiple people playing. You could have 3 people playing all at the same time, right?
Right.
But you're not you could all start and head out in 3 different directions. And then the only reason that this brawl scenario would ever happen is if somehow you all land on the same hex, right? Which is crazy. Because I could imagine a scenario where like maybe like you, me, and Jason all start playing this game, and I say we roll. I take a hex like straight up or whatever, and then one of you takes a hex to the right, one of you takes a hex to the left, and then we all get together, maybe in like Discord or something, and just say like advance 1 hex. And then basically you just track where the other people are. But then if a hex advances into where 2 people are, then on that day you get together and resolve that hex together, and then maybe head out in 2 different directions. Or have a PvP combat scenario. So if you did that where like you didn't really know where the other people were, but you were kind of tracking it a little bit until suddenly you're on the same hex, it'd be really interesting to cross competitive, collaborative, PvP, all of that in one giant game, because one time you meet a party, you could be like, hey, let's trade loot. Let's do this. I got too many swords. I got too many this or that. And the next time you meet them, it's just like, oh, you got a crown. Cool, I attack you.
You have a crown.
Yeah. It's really neat. There's a glossary of terms after this, which you can read if you want. It's pretty straightforward, combat, delving, all that kind of stuff. But this is the order of play page that I really, really like, and it's the last page before you get to the bonus content. While they're not turns and all enemies and players are considered attacked simultaneously, there are types of actions and counters that you can have. And for clarity, this is how it works. Encounters that specify immediately take precedence over all other encounters, even if they were previously in the encounter. Evasion always precedes combat. The Hermit's healing ability and the permanent Moonkiss power always precede damage. Damage is always totaled before determining which party member takes damage. Traps are encountered before enemies are loot, unless the loot is specifically trapped. Loot is always rolled before engaging or evading enemies so that you know what you're fighting for. Dungeon rooms are always fully generated, including doors, before engaging in any other encounters, as a number of doors is important. Magic may be used freely at any time, and enemies are always encountered before dungeon entrances, exits, or doors. So you can't just be like, okay, there's a door, I'm out. You have to encounter the enemy before you go. And
you
that
know the door exists, but you have to encounter the enemy.
Right, exactly. Like, but you at least didn't exactly like you said. You know it's there because you have to know if it's a. I mean, there's I think 2 options on the table where it's just dead end. So you're just like, fuck, there is no door. So if you want to evade the enemy, you have to actually encounter with them first and then roll an evasion before you can just be like, all right, I'm out. Yeah. And then you get into the hex grid. You get into a delving, like it's just a page of little squares for dungeon delving. There is, I love the party sheet. It is these basically sections split into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little sections for each party member. Name, archetype, weapon, damage, max HP, current HP, power, weakness, and then the loot listed, with the party level and party goal at the bottom. And then basically all of the tables in the book are put onto 2 pages for quick
I love these pages.
So good. And then the very last page is the rules for multiplayer, PvP and combat. And that is 12 years.
That's 12 years.
Yeah, I'm such a fan of this game. I want to play really bad.
Yeah, it's really good.
One of the things, like I said, that I really want, that you can play this game also in so many different ways that really, really gets me. So, like, I can imagine, as we said, like, you and me, or you, me, and somebody else, all starting in different directions, doing 1 hex at a time, and then potentially crossing over, like, either 2 or 3 people. I could also imagine us just doing 2 completely separate things and just saying what happens to each other, right? What you did and I did. I can also imagine, like, one of us starts, we'll roll like a D2 or whatever. You go until you have a TPK, and then count how many years you have, and then the second player goes until they do a TPK, and you literally just go back and forth until either the 12 years passes or you defeat the Lich King, and just basically taking turns with the narrative, which would be really interesting. And you just have a series of back and forth, like basically giant party obituaries
rapidly, though.
Yeah. All right, so kicking over into the game review page real quick. For those that haven't listened, we do 5 scores worth 10 points each. Art and style, which is the art and the consistency of the style throughout. the layout and function, which is how the layout looks as far as readability, and function as far as how easy it is to navigate the book in the PDF. Rule set and crunch, which is if it's a new rule set, is it good? And crunch is the amount of crunch in the game, the amount of rules in the game fit what the game is trying to do. Originality, which is super broad, but it's originality in rule set and setting and lore. Basically, everything does just feel different. And value, which is what you get for the money you spend. If there's free content, if there's apps, if there's a bunch of other stuff, those are what we rated on to a score of 50. So, starting with art and style, I love the cover and I love the old school style of art inside, but it is kind of art sparse.
It's very sparse, but like where it is, it's very good. You know, there is there, you know, like when you look at the poem, it's got that really cool framing around it. But yeah, you can go several pages with there being no art. You can go a lot of pages with there being no art, and there is a lot of empty space where there could be more art. The thing about this is like it's obviously like a game made by like just two people, and you know it's a little more limited in scope. But yeah, it does kind of suffer in the art for that, you know?
And I did notice that there is like a 10-page stretch where there's a lot of art. It's page 14 to roughly page 25. I think there's an art piece on there is literally an art piece on every other page. One is on the inside and the outside, but every like open spread has an art piece in it. But really sparse on the art through to page 14, and after 25 there's not a whole lot. But then you're also getting into like the Lich King and more tables and stuff. But I think a lot of it is because the early pages and the end pages are kind of all tables.
Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, also the more pages you put in a little zine, the thicker it gets, the harder it is to deal with. But it's still art sparse.
Still art sparse.
Style, and you know, we're art boys. We've said that before.
We're little artsy boys.
So style is consistent. The art that is there is really nice. What do you feel?
I think this is a 6 for me on art. I think it's above average. I think the art is good that's in here, and it reinforces the theme and the tone. But I do think there are a couple instances where there's a big white space on the page where you could just drop, like on one of the pages they have like an axe, or they have like a mushroom, and like a little bit more things like that kind of dropped in here randomly would have dressed it up a little bit. But I don't think it's bad. You know?
No, I think it's great. But again, like we like art heavy books, so we're always going to kind of skew towards that. Layout and function. Thoughts?
I mean, it's pretty high.
I mean, first of all,
it's easy to read. It's beautiful. It's hyperlinked. So there you go right there. It's really easy to read. It's set up in an order in which makes sense, right? You have these roll tables that teach you about these really about all of these instances in a very straightforward way, and then after you go through these roll tables, you have all of these rules written out that then refer back to these instances that you've seen over and over and over. I don't have a lot of critiques for the layout and function of this.
Oh. I think one of the things it says in the getting started part I really liked. Once you have skimmed the rules and have a sense of how to play, you may quickly find that the rulebook is cast aside and only pulled out occasionally to answer the odd question or provide clarity. Very true. I mean, because I got this dope-ass folder here, I have extra pages of just a quick play rules. I would literally just
really
slap
usable.
That.
Yeah, it's a very usable book. You could take this to the table with you, and referencing this book at the table would not be like, oh, hold on, guys, I gotta hold on, it's page 400, it's page 250.
Right.
Yeah. This is pretty high for me. It does not have hyperlink back to the I like when the page numbers are hyperlinked to the index, so you can just keep going back and forth.
Yes.
That's a 10 for me. So this is a strong 8 or 9 for me.
I was saying 8 because I know the way that we usually do a lot of the scoring is we start at 5 and then add. The way that personally for me, that's what I always say.
Yeah, I know you do it. I just do it by feeling.
I like that you do it by feel and I do it by numbers, and it usually works out. We're within like half a point of each other, like 90+% of the time, like 70% of the time it works every time or whatever, you know. But for layout and function, in my mind, what makes sense is I detract what it doesn't have compared to Troika.
Right.
Because Troika is the perfect laid out book, in my opinion. I think it's one of the strongest 10s in my mind. that we have that is a 10. I think it's probably the 10est 10 we have.
It's the most 10-y 10 that's ever 10'd.
Exactly. So I completely agree with you. 8 is where I was going because it doesn't have hyperlinks back to the index. There are some parts that could be like linked to other areas to reference back and forth to within the document.
Okay.
But again, so it's a 45-page document.
That.
And I do love Troika and like Mothership, and I think I don't know if Orbital Blues did it, but where each kind of paragraph is also like number like 4.1, 4.2 kind of thing. I don't think
Orbital Blues did that, but yeah, I told the engineer, like, yeah, I think 8's a good one for this though.
Yeah, I think 8 is great. And again, like if 5 is average, you know, these are solid scores on that. Rule set and crunch.
So our perceived big thing here is this is perceived rule set and crunch because we have not played this yet. So this is the score that is most likely to change after we play it, just like we changed Into the Odd. We actually bumped Into the Odd up because I fucking loved it after playing it. Although I loved it when reading it. Rule set and crunch. You know, this almost couldn't be a better rule set for what it is. You know what I mean? I don't know of any way that it could improve. Like, I really don't, you know?
I'm thinking, you know, I agree for the most part. You know, one of the things I love is that the PvP stuff. Like I said, in my game, I'm not going to get into what it is of part of my game. I added that 2d6 subtract the lowest from the highest. And I discovered that in Adam Vass's 2d6 document he put out. Anyone that hasn't found that, just Google Adam Vass 2d6. It is a PDF. It's one page, and it just talks about how cool 2d6 is and all the different things you can do with it. And that's the first time I saw the subtract one from the other. This is the first time I'm seeing it in use in a game, not just an example of play. So it's really cool to see, and it is still, and again, a different take. It's not one roll you're getting because you subtract one for the other. It's literally you roll one and I roll one and we do the difference, which is even a different variation of that. So I really, really love that.
What are you thinking for this?
I don't know. I mean,
it's always the hardest one.
It is really hard because again, we haven't played it, but I'm just trying to think of a way, something in the rules, specifically rules that I would do different.
There's fucking nothing wrong with it. I
can't really think of anything I would do different. It's so well done.
I think that makes the 9 because I think getting a 10 on rules will be incredibly hard.
Basically impossible.
We will probably do an actual play of the two of us playing this at some point as an extra episode. And after that, if we are like, this is it, this is the perfect game for what it is, we'll revisit. But I think a 9 is good for this.
The thing that you just said too, I also think this one is one of the ones that has potential to be multiple 10s once we hit 110, because for what it is, because rule sets are so different per the way why you're playing them. Yeah. Because art book is an art book is an art book. You know what I mean?
It's an art book. Totally.
And a layout is a layout for the most part, right? There's things that there are specific criteria that we want to hit. The rule set and crunch has a much more kind of broad, organic.
Yeah.
So I do like the caveat that for what it is, you could compare two completely different games and have the same score, and they would be two completely different games. I'm super happy with this being a 9.
I am too. I think it's good.
Whether we play it on Weekly Scroll or Adventure Archive, I think I can't imagine that we're not going to do this in the next month or two, or whenever you're available after class and stuff.
Originality.
Yeah.
So like this is a game that is is inspired by retro games, retro clones. But it is a solo hex crawl. In that I have a few solo games right now. And I don't know that any of them are solo hex crawls. I think they're all like journaling games, essentially, like creative writing games. So
both, I mean, Merger's a solo game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not a hex crawl though.
No, that's what I'm saying, but it's also not a journaling game. It's a dice roll and win game.
That's very true. But it's not a hex crawl.
No. And Chris Bissett kind of set the gold standard for what a lot of TTRPG community does, which is the Wretched and Alone system. But it is it's journaling with like cards and a dice tower. But like you just said, Hexploration, dungeon delving, micro play, macro play, which we love from Kingdoms, originality, like you just said. I mean, it's a variation on a fantasy theme, right?
Totally.
But as we said before, originality is not just the lore; it's across the board. Originality in the rule set, not rating the rule set, but how original the use of it is.
Yeah,
I could be completely wrong, and maybe this changes if someone goes, no, there's 18 of these. Here you go. I've never seen one that does it this way, where you play as a whole.
And the use of the Fae too. Yeah, you play as a whole party is doing one thing, but like the use of the Fae as the passage of time, and the passage of time being this huge aspect of like you only have 12 years to like defeat this, every 12-year lich. Which in and of itself is like, that's pretty unique as well. You have to put a crown on the Lich's head to like subjugate it. And like,
he's the Lich King. He's supposed to be at a coronation.
Yes.
He's supposed to be at a coronation. And if he doesn't get his fucking crown, he fucking
throws tantrum.
He blows shit up. So what I also love about the game too is even if you succeed, you only succeeded for a short period of time. And then he'll come back again unless you completely destroy him. So I had this idea. I think I said something to Jason about it, where you could start as if your guy survives, if your person survives, you could start as a young adventurer, defeat the Lich King, and then next time you play,
takes up the mantle.
No, you could be like now you're a warrior. You're old. You're 12 years older. You're not quite middle aged, but you've seen some shit. And then how about 12 years after that, where you're like a grizzled old veteran who's just like, fuck, no one's going to defeat this guy. I got to do this again. Long. You won't. Yeah, you won't. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think this is an 8 for me.
I'm good with an 8. I'm good with an 8 on that. Again, variation on the fantasy theme, but the way in which you play the game, I have yet to see a game like
really
this.
Well executed. Yeah.
Really well executed.
And then value.
Value is one of those things where like I think this is perpetually our lowest score across the board. And often we talk about the game as if we didn't add this in. And I know people have questioned it, but I think it's really important to have this in there because as we talk about, it's if I can't afford your game, if I can't afford your game, I can't play your game. The world's.
I want tabletop gaming to be a thing that like anyone can do, and there's almost no barrier for entry. And we always criticize. I know we criticize D&D and WotC a lot, but like it's ridiculous that I have to buy a $50 book, and then after the $50 book, like I still kind of need another $50 book, and then potentially I still need another $50 book.
Well, not only that, then you have to completely pay. You have to pay a separate company $30 for every PDF you want too, if you want to play online.
Yeah. So, and I want this community, this space to be open to everybody, no matter what their financial situation is, which I think is why value is important.
And I think one of the things, especially if we start when we start reviewing ones that were like itch funded, is community copies in the future. Do they offer community copies, which would be a huge plus for the value, because a lot of those, and even in the funding themselves, they add in. And Kickstarter is doing a little bit too, where they'll say like, if you funded this, you add in a bunch of community copies because you have the opportunity to give people in a poor financial situation or people like lesser served by a lot of different factors the ability to play your game, which is just absolutely fucking fantastic. And I really love the drive for that in it. But right now we don't have a lot with this. So again, it's perpetually our lowest score because 5 is average. So you have to be pretty above average to get a more bang for your buck.
And admittedly, this is not a very expensive game. It's out of stock on Exalted right now, but it's $15 for the zine and the PDF. And I think that's incredibly, that's pretty accessible,
And it's
super
30,
replayable too.
Yeah. I think with all the bonus pages and stuff, it's like 42 pages, I think. Yeah. And you could theoretically chop all of these out if you really want, or don't be a psycho and just photocopy them.
Or don't fucking do that. Yeah.
Yeah, just photocopy them. But you get the quick play rules that you could easily take out and then use for the entire thing. Not only that, like they're all like foiled and like hand put together and stuff. You know what I mean? Like he literally makes these and then just sends a batch to people. You know what I mean? It's not like this is on a line getting produced. So $15 for like a handmade, foiled.
It's handmade. Yeah. I think the biggest thing too is that like, when we're talking about Max Moon stuff specifically, he's hand making this stuff, which is considerable. And the fact that I can still get it for $15, even though it's handmade, is ridiculous. Because I bet it takes quite a while to make a couple of these.
Yeah, absolutely. And on top of that, don't forget. I mean, there's only 10 of these in the world, but I do have one of these that did come with a bunch of extras from iWizard. So that is another opportunity and things that he does as well. So again, the other thing we talk about is
for this,
Yeah. One thing that I would love to know, because I don't see it written anywhere in here, is the potential for third-party content. I could see this being like basically change the setting to and use the base rules, even if you check out like the 12 years aspect
I'm sure
of it.
You could, yeah.
But the basic exploration delving, I mean, I can imagine a space game like this, where you're actually going through space and stopping on planets and stuff like that. If there was a third-party license, if there was, I mean, I think that would be the only thing that would really bump it up for me. But $15 PDF and physical handmade zine. What are your thoughts?
I think a 7. I'm thinking a 7 for this. I think it's good. I think it's cheaper than a lot of stuff, but I don't think there's as much like third-party stuff as I would like to give it the higher score.
Right. And I can't, like I said, I can't imagine that that people wouldn't be allowed to create content in this. So what does that give us? 6 plus 8 plus 9 plus 8 plus 7, 38. Incredibly respectable score. I think that's 1 point off of Into the Odd. And I feel happy with that.
I'm
love
the
this
Into the
game.
Odd fanboy, so
yeah,
I'm good with that.
Absolutely love this game. And that is 12 years. Long story short, we love it. If you have the opportunity, when second edition or more reprints come out, I highly advise you to snatch this up. It's really, really good, really, really beautiful. And quickly, next week, we are actually going to have another guest with us. If you know Merkborg, you know Forbidden Psalm. It is the minis game created specifically for Merkborg, adaptable to Merkborg. It is created by Kevin Rahman. I want to ask him and make sure that I'm saying that correctly. And they have a Kickstarter project out right now for the third big installment, plus some other 2 that came out for Last War, which is the first kind of non-Merkborg setting thing. It's kind of set in like a weird, monstrous World War II. We are going to have Kevin on our episode next week, right at the beginning, and then we are going to be going over the original Forbidden Psalm book next week for our episode. So you definitely want to be here. Definitely want to tune in for that.
Tune in, come hang out.
Yeah. So again, Max, great game. Hunter, awesome time. Seriously, this so good. The only thing that can make it better is if I had like a nice embossed lich here in the middle of it, Otherwise, can't say it enough. And that's our episode. So thank you so much for being here. Whether you're on podcast or in the VODs, thank you so much for listening and watching. Hunter, I will see you later. Have a good day.
Farewell.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.